All right. Hey, everybody, and welcome back to Cool Beans Hot Stuff. Today is Mental Health Mondays, which means we're going over a mental health topic. Hope everybody had a good weekend, too, by the way, before we get started. My weekend was fucking awesome. Um, what did I even do this weekend? I don't know. I think I was mostly just lazy. Oh, that's not true. No, yesterday I fucking screwed up my windows, is what I did. That's right. I still had a really good weekend, but yeah, yesterday was a bummer. Yeah, I fucking screwed up my Windows and had to reinstall it. Fucking around in the BIOS. I was actually test streaming multiple times and had a couple people in there watching me flip out over my latency and everything going on my computer. So I spent all of day yesterday screwing up my computer and then fixing it. But it seems to be working now. I'm here, so that's good. Today was a good day though. I went and got a really good workout in, which was awesome, and then got a really awesome nap in. And now I'm here chilling, talking about EMDR therapy. That's what we're going to be talking about today. That was a nice segue. I like how I did that. So yeah, today we're going to go over what I think is one of the coolest and funnest, or I guess I don't know, fun. It's not fun, you know. I mean, it's about as fun as therapy can be, and therapy is never fun. If therapy's fun, then you're doing it wrong. Um, this was definitely one of the most effective, anyways, forms of therapy that I went. Right. Okay. So I tried a couple different types of therapy out. Uh, back going on about 7, 8 years now, somewhere in that area. 6 to 8 years ago, I went to therapy. Figured, I had a bunch of shit going on in my life. Burp. I swear, I don't burp a single time the entire day. Not one single fucking burp. Then as soon as the microphone comes on, I'm just burping left and right. It's nonstop. Um. So, anyways, yeah, I went and shit getting stuck in my throat too, I guess. So, yeah, a few years ago, I went and did a couple different kinds of therapy. Um, it was one of those moments in your life where like shit rains and it pours, and was old enough to realize that I had some kind of like emotional things going on there that I probably needed to resolve and didn't know how to do that. So I went to and found a therapist and tried a couple different types of therapy. One was cognitive behavioral therapy, which I already did a stream on. I think that was actually my very first stream was cognitive behavioral therapy. And then eventually went and found a therapist that could do EMDR therapy, or well, ran into a therapist that did EMDR therapy and decided to give that a shot too. And it was definitely one of the more interesting things that I did. On a really funny note too, I actually heard about EMDR therapy from a friend way before, I knew what it was or did it, and I never planned on doing it. Um, I had just started cognitive behavioral therapy, and I don't even know, have I? Yeah, I did. Okay, I started doing that and ran into this guy. And I guess, hold on, like, cause I know I wrote down on my handy dandy note card, uh, that I was going to, um, oh yeah, okay. So yeah, we can go ahead and tell the story now. So yeah, EMDR therapy. I knew a guy, right? That God, I can't remember, John. It was John something. I have another friend named Taylor, and when I first met this guy Taylor, I met him at this other guy John's house. We were all audio. Gosh, I don't even remember what used to be. Engineers. We're all audio engineers for recording studios around town, and we all kind of met up for a local engineer meetup night. That was like I think John posted it on like fucking Facebook or whatever, and it was all at John's studio in his basement. And John was a cool guy. He was a really chill dude. He was nerdy. He looked exactly like the stork dude from a movie called New Guy back in the day. I don't know if any of you guys remember this movie. It's a great fucking movie. 2002. Wow, that is old. Every time I look back and see one of these movies from my childhood, I grow a few gray hairs. This movie right here, The New Guy, has this skinny dude in it as the main character, the new guy. DJ Quails is his name. I had no idea that that was his name. This dude right here. Okay, this is a take you. Okay, here we go. So take this guy and put a big pair of really thick bottle cap glasses, like thick fucking glasses, right? And you would have John. That's what John looked like. John was about as nerdy could get. He was nerdy dialed up to 100, right? And then tear the knob off. He was a nerdy fella. He was a cool dude and he was very smart, but he was nerdy. And I remember meeting him and thinking this guy has got to be the nerdiest dude I have ever met. But he's really chill. He's really cool. However, after hanging out with him a couple times, I definitely noticed one, he had a pretty hot wife. His wife was pretty hot, particularly for looking like this guy right here, right? He was doing pretty well for himself. But she was mean, man. She was so fucking mean to John, dude. Oh, she was brutal. And hearing John talk here and there, I could kind of gather that he did not like this girl at all. She was mean as shit to him, and he did not feel good about how he was treated. But he was sticking with her because they had a daughter together. So, for the sake of the daughter, he was sticking with this really, well, this nasty woman, dude. She was mean as hell. She said some really shitty things to him in front of whole groups of people, just made him feel like as much as she could, make him feel like shit. So I always felt bad for John and always hoped that, he would get something figured out because we were never really like friends, but he was a cool enough dude, right? He was really chill. Anyways, go into the future, years and years later, I've opened up my own studio. Uh, Taylor moved from Denver out to Nashville, I think, by that point. And I'm hanging out at this other guy's house, this guy named Tig, who was kind of like a mutual tech dude that we all knew. I think he used to tune pianos, is what Tig did. Tig was a cool guy. And I was out hanging out with him, and John pops up out of nowhere, just shows up to hang out with Tig, and didn't know the two even knew each other. And yeah, anyways, I'm sitting there telling John and Tig how I'm doing like this cognitive behavioral therapy stuff. And John is like, "Oh, dude, like I tried this type of therapy and it like really helped me in life, dude. It changed my whole perspective on the world, dude, and changed a lot for me, man." He's like, "I quit smoking. I divorced that wife. I got a new girlfriend now and life is just amazing for me, bro." And I was like, "Wow, what is it?" He's like, "I forget what it's called. It's like EMD or EDM because we were music guys, right?" So he's like, "It's kind of like EDM, right? Like kind of music, but that's not what it is. It has nothing to do with music." He's like, "It's like they shine like a light in your eye, and your eye has to like follow the light or something." He explained it very horribly. He did a horrible job of explaining it. And when he was done, I was like, "Well, that sounds like a bunch of fucking gobbledygook. Sounds like a bunch of fucking communist gobbledygook," as Norm would say. Like, that doesn't make no damn sense. I don't know why in the world that would help you whatsoever to have somebody just shine a light in your fucking eyes. Like, how much do you pay somebody to shine a fucking light in your eyes? Like, I just go up and just like, bam, right in your eye, and that's $200 an hour, bitch. You're cured. Fucking no way. I was like, "Well, whatever, John, like that's cool, I guess. I'm happy for you." And I was legit happy for him, but I was like, "Yeah, I don't think, that sounds like some, hypnotherapy shit. There's a lot of different kinds of therapy out there, and some of them are a little less believable than others, right?" And now that's actually, I think that's something that I had for a future stream, all the different kinds of therapy, because there's so many types of different therapy out there, and a very large portion of them are completely unproven. They're not, they could work. They might work for some people. I'm sure they do work for certain people, but the majority of them, a lot of them, not the majority, but a lot of them have zero scientific basis behind them, right? So I figured that's what this little light fucking thing that John did was some unscientific shit, but it helped John and it made him feel good. He got rid of that very emotionally abusive woman that he was married to and had a new girlfriend. And tell you what, the new girlfriend was even fucking hotter than his last girlfriend. I was like, Jesus Christ, John, you must have like a big fucking fat dick, bro, because you look like the storkiest, nerdiest little shit in the world, but you got these hot girls all running around you. But he opened up his own business. He started taking pinball machines. He taken old pinball machines and digitizing them he started making digital pinball machines and was making really good money. I went over to his place one time after we talked because I was a tech guy at the time. Oh, that's right. I had sold my stake in the recording studio. And now I'd opened up my own company fixing audio equipment. So I was going out to John's house to fix an old organ of his. He had an old Hammond B3 organ. And that might not mean nothing to a lot of you out there, but it's a very nice organ that's expensive and hard to get. And they don't make them no more. And it's very coveted in recording studios. And John had one that was totally fried. So I went out there to see what I could do electronically to the organ, any electronics in the organ that I could fix. And he showed me these digitized pinball machines that he's making, digital pinball machines. And he's like, yeah, I got these two right here. They're ready to ship out. Took me about a month to put them together. And each one I sold for $75,000. And I was like, wow. So you made $150,000 in 1 month off of these pinball machines that you just make in your living room. And he's like, yeah, man. And I was like, dude, that's awesome, John. Fucking A. And I remember getting on his Facebook, and he had pictures of him out in like Egypt. Him and his wife went to Egypt. They're on like a fucking camel, like riding a fucking camel through the pyramids and shit in Egypt. And the dude's like traveling all over the world. He's just making pinball machines, traveling the world with his hot wife, doing whatever the fuck he wants to do. And I was like, wow, geez, Sean, like that EMDR shit must have really worked for you. Like, okay, well, I mean, I guess, hey, like, if that's all it takes to get that kind of life is just have somebody like in your eyeball with a fucking light, like, I'm game, sure, shine a light in my fucking eye then, okay. But anyways, I kind of, forgot about it because I was working on my own thing. And then probably another year or two later is when I my therapist left Denver and I had to find a new one, and I found a new one, and I went with a new therapist, and this therapist specialized in EMDR therapy and convinced me to give it a shot. And after I gave it a try and did it for, I think it was about 6 to 8 months is what I was working on, how long I worked on it, it helped. It definitely helped a lot, which is why I'm telling you guys about it today. So, because it is a very helpful form of therapy, it is more helpful for certain things than others. But if you're the kind of person that's having some troubles, particularly with like PTSD or anything like that, EMDR therapy is an effective mode of treatment. There's plenty of others, but EMDR, in my experience, works really, really well. So it just doesn't cure fucking burps, though. I'll tell you that. But yeah. So, anyways, we're gonna go ahead and learn what this therapy is, what it does, how it works, what you would mostly use it for, and then I even got my old documentation right here, and my old EMDR notebook I'm gonna bust out, and then I even got right here. I even plugged it in today because it's been so long since I've used it. And EMDR light bars. So that's this thing right here. This little hunk of light and plastic is what what they use in EMDR. They can use a couple different, but that is a very common piece of equipment that's used in EMDR therapy. After doing it for about like 8 months to a year, I moved and then realized, I want to get back into doing EMDR therapy. There was a lot of like memories that were kind of unresolved that I want to go back and take a crack at in EMDR therapy. But EMDR therapy is expensive. That's like the big downside to it. All therapy is expensive, which is why, I know in the cognitive behavioral therapy stream that I did, which if you're watching this on YouTube, by the way, if you are watching this on YouTube, hope you enjoy the content. And if you do, please like and subscribe. It really helps the algorithm, and I appreciate it. And consider coming over to Twitch so you can sit and actually talk with me. Because as of right now, I think I'm talking to nobody. I'm just chilling with myself. So it's always nice to have people in the chat room to sit and bullshit with about things like this. And I get a few people here and there, but it's always a lot funner when I have somebody to talk to, right? So if you're interested, come over and chat with me about this, because that was really the whole point of doing a live stream instead of just doing videos. That, and I'm too lazy to do the whole video thing. So anyways, I forgot what I was talking about. Oh yeah, in cognitive behavioral therapy, in that stream that I did, which if you're watching on YouTube should be on my YouTube channel. I think it's the first video I did. You can go check it out. Probably not the best video because it was the first one I did. Maybe I'll redo that at some point. I figure maybe all those first 2 weeks of videos I might redo, since they were my first ones. The audio was way worse. I just put up a whole bunch of audio paneling just last week that have really helped the sound in this room. So, I kind of got myself in my ears, and it sounds way better than it did. Less echo, a little bit more of the radio quality that we're going for, right? A little bit. A lot better than it was. Anyways, yeah, so go check out that video. But in that video, like I say, if you're going to find a therapist, definitely put some serious time and effort into finding a really good therapist that legitimately gives a fuck about your problems and legitimately loves their job and wants to do a good job at their job, like counts you getting healthier as a big success in their life. Because the sad truth is there's a lot of therapists out there that are just shit. It's the same with every job. Therapy is just like any other job, just like being a fucking mechanic, right? When your car is fucked up and you got to go take it to mechanic, some mechanics love to do their jobs. They're excited to be here. They fucking love cars, and they're really good with cars, and they're really good with people. They really want to help you out. You walking away satisfied is like their fucking mission when they're at work. And because of that, you just always have amazing experiences. Okay. Other people are just here to do a fucking job. And sometimes they're good at their job in spite of the fact that they don't really give a shit. But they don't care. Right, they're here for money. That's why they're doing this job, because either they can make good money doing it, or it's what they've always done and they never did anything else. They found their way into it, and they're too old to change careers now or whatever, but they're here because they're here, and that's it. And sometimes those people will do a good job or a decent enough job, and sometimes they do a fucking shitty job and they don't care. And then even still, you have the other group of people. You're going to run into mechanics who, whether they love mechanics or not isn't the point. Some of them are just shitty people. Some mechanics will fuck you over. I got a truck, man, that for 2 years straight, man, I must have spent $2,000 a year just getting these stupid fucking sensors replaced, my crankshaft sensors. There's only two of them, and I had to get them replaced 3 times in 2 years, which is unheard of. You should only have to replace those sensors once every like 70,000 miles, right? But they went out, I got them replaced, and then boom, 2 years straight, had to get them replaced 3 times in a row. And it just became obvious, once I did some research into it, because I'm not a car guy, I have to do the research into it, I know how to change oil and change a tire, and that's about it. For some really weird reason, I also know how to put in a solenoid. I don't know why, but that was something I learned in high school that just stuck with me. And then obviously like change your battery and shit, right? But still, I don't know, how to do a whole lot with cars. When I have to work on my own truck, I have to look it up on YouTube, find a video like one of my videos, an informational video, and look into it. And once I looked into it, it just became really ridiculously obvious that these people at the garage were just fucking me over. They were just taking my money. They were charging me like 2 grand, or like, sorry, about $1,000 per uh sensor to put in, and I went out and I bought myself 4 sensors for $70 for 4 of them, and they only have to put in two, and when they put in one, they charge me $1,000 for a sensor that is, I mean, 70 divided by four, fuck, 35 for 2 sensors, $35. You're talking less than $15 per sensor, or a little over $15 per sensor. And they're charging me $1,000 to put it in. And so it was like, okay, you people are just fucking me over. You're making my life so fucking expensive, and you don't even give a shit. And so you get mechanics like that. That's reality, man. You got to keep your eyes open for that shit. Even when you don't know how to fix your own car, if you got something big to fix, you should probably, one, take it to a couple different mechanics if you can. Nowadays, that gets even more difficult because some vehicles, you certain things on vehicles, you have to take them to the dealership nowadays and all that bullshit. But you really want to look into whatever it is that they're supposed to be fixing, and make sure that they're doing that they're actually doing the correct job, and that the money lines up. Because if it's like a situation like that where I wasn't looking into it, I got screwed out of about what did it was about 2003 for about 5 grand is what they fucked me out of before I finally realized what was happening. Right, they were putting the sensors in wrong every time, either because they sucked at their job and they didn't give a fuck, or because they were fucking me over, right? One or the other. But you get that. And so it's the same with therapists. You're going to have therapists. Think of your car, your mind is a car. When it's fucked up and you need a professional to help you fix it, you're going to get some therapists that absolutely fucking love to be there and love to do their job. and want to give you the best help they humanly possibly can. Uh, and they're going to do a good job because of that. You are going to have a good experience. Some therapists just want to they just want money. They're just here for the payday, man. This is what they went to college for. They figured out too late that I don't like this fucking job, but they're not going to go back to college and get another student loan and all that debt and shit. So this is what they're stuck doing. And they don't want to be here doing it, or they did it because their parents did it. I've ran into that. Therapists that their parents did it. And so they thought for some reason that meant they were going to be an amazing therapist. And in some cases, man, one case specifically, I remember a therapist who's had two parents that were therapists, and he was more fucked up than I was, man. I came out of there like, fuck, I'm glad I'm not that guy. I definitely don't want him working on my fucking mind. I'm gonna walk out of here more fucked up than more fucked up than I already am, because that dude needs to go see a fucking therapist, right? He needs to go back and talk to mommy and daddy and tell them they fucked up, because he was all kinds of wackadoodle. So that can happen, so that's a reality. And then there's also, unfortunately, therapists who aren't good people. That's the reality. Is there is therapists who will fuck your head up the same way that a mechanic will fuck up your car. So you'll come back and spend more money, right? There's therapists who will do the same fucking thing. They will keep your brain fucked up so you keep coming back to get fixed because you're not getting fixed, right? That is absolutely a thing. I know this is just one example of many, but there was just a few years ago, I know there was a therapist, I think, wasn't in Atlanta, Georgia, maybe somewhere on the East Coast like that. I think it was Atlanta, Georgia, or maybe Philadelphia. A woman therapist, she got her license taken away. That's all that happened, but she got her license taken away because she had I guess apparently she was a radical feminist and had two or three patients that were men and had essentially like convinced two of these men to kill themselves is what she did. And they did. They committed suicide. And after they went through and looked at everything these guys were, writing down and going through in their personal lives, it became obvious that they were doing it because this therapist was a shitty therapist. She had an issue with men and she took it out on these two men who were coming to her for help. She wanted to take out her. I actually have a scary story plans on that. I write scary stories in my spare time. If I could pick one job that would be like the most amazing job to do in my life, it'd be being a writer. I would love to do that. So I write short stories, and I got a short story actually that I wanted to write about a psychotic therapist who just takes her personal vendettas out on her clients, kind of inspired by that story. Because that's a fucked up, scary story, bro. That's some scary ass shit. So all I'm saying, I'm not telling you that to freak you out over therapists. I'm just saying, be careful when you do go to therapy, make sure you're looking out for yourself and make sure you're finding a good quality therapist the same way you would want to find a good quality mechanic or anything else in the world, right? It's fucking crazy the amount of effort people put into, shopping for their favorite brand of fucking chips or deciding what they want to eat tonight. But then when it comes to like bigger purchases, like purchasing a car or getting a therapist, they like, it just goes over their head. They just go with the first person that will talk to them or the cheapest. And it doesn't even matter. When they are cheap, they're still expensive. So make sure you find a good therapist is all I'm saying. That was my public service announcement for today. But anyway, so yeah, this, EMDR therapy, I don't know how we got into the good therapist, bad therapist. Oh, that's right. Therapy is expensive no matter what you do. So it's important you find a good therapist. That, and you don't want to like, go to therapy and then 6 months later you're even worse because your therapist, hates your guts because you have a penis or a vagina or some shit, So you don't want to do that. I don't want that for you. So, anyways, rant finished. Moving on. What is EMDR therapy? We're going to watch a quick little video by Psychub. Psycho's a really nice channel. I got to subscribe to them because I don't know why I'm not subscribed. They're a good channel. They have a lot of useful information. So we're going to get a quick little video from them on what exactly EMDR therapy is, what it stands for, how it kind of works. And then we're going to dive into, well, we got a little bit more reading on what it is, reading on what it does. We're going to get into a little few more videos on that right here. This lady right here is going to show us how it works. And then we got the actual process itself that we're going to get into. And that's when I'm going to give you guys a light bar demonstration. And then if we have time, we'll go through some studies on EMDR therapy. showing how it works because they've got therapy, social workers' perspectives on the effectiveness of EMDR and telehealth for PTSD patients, eye movement desensitization and reprocessing for post traumatic stress disorder, and what was this one? Applicability of eye movement desensitization. Yes, EMDR therapy as an intervention in dogs with fear and anxiety disorders after a traumatic event. No shit. So, I'll spoiler alert that one. This shit even works on dogs, bro. All right. So there you have it. Anyways, before I rant about some other bullshit, let's go ahead and watch this YouTube video. Let's pop up here. Okay. Check it out.
Those images are just stuck in my head.
My childhood was so bad with the abuse. I've been to therapy for years. I liked my therapist, but nothing really changed.
I can't stand going out to bars or being around people. I drink alone. I think it used to make me feel better, but not anymore.
Since the attack, I feel numb. Had to leave school and work. My life just stopped.
If you didn't put it together, that's what EMDR therapy stands for. Eye movement desensitization reprocessing.
These are the voices of people who have lived with post-traumatic stress disorder, or PTSD. Sometimes PTSD can start right away after something happens, and other times it takes a while to notice symptoms. Either way, when a person has PTSD, it usually means that painful memories become a problem in a person's life. And that's when someone might need some help. But PTSD is a condition that can be treated. There are a few therapies that work especially well, and eye movement desensitization and reprocessing, or EMDR, is one. EMDR is an evidence-based treatment, which means it's been proven to be effective more often than most other types of therapy.
Yeah, on a interesting note, not to rant in the middle of the video, but real quick, last Mental Health Monday, what the fuck did I do that week? Hold on, most common mental health disorders. You go check out that video on YouTube. That one's getting some traction for some reason. I don't know what exactly I did differently with that video, but it's got like twice as more views as all my other ones. Anyways, that video, we had a fella, Adamant, was in the chat, who was a psychologist from Brazil, and he was saying this is a big deal in psychology right now, is there's a big split between the psychologists who are using what's known as evidence-based therapies and non-evidence-based therapies. And that's what I was kind of talking about earlier. There's so many different treatments available in the therapy world, and a lot of them don't have any evidence to back up that they actually work. EMDR does have evidence. It's what's considered an evidence-based treatment.
During EMDR, a trained therapist works with a person to keep the sessions comfortable and relaxed, but also to achieve the goals they set together. Relaxation and breathing exercises might be taught early in the sessions, so they can be used later. People then talk about the memories that have been most difficult for them. While they're telling the stories of their trauma, they're also watching something right in front of them, such as moving lights or the tip of a pencil being waved back and forth.
Yeah, so I know that's just a silly cartoon, but that's actually how EMDR therapy kind of started. I don't know if that's exactly how it started, but this was an early form of the treatment. They would actually just move a pencil horizontally in front of your eyes and tell you to watch it while you're discussing the traumatic memory. And then they started using lights. The lights were much more effective, easier to focus on. They would actually use like a light pointer. And that's what my buddy John was trying to explain, right? He was like, oh yeah, they point a light in your eye and you have to follow it. And again, he was doing a horrible job of explaining it. I thought that they just like literally shined a fucking laser into your eyeball. and then that somehow fixed your brain. So I thought it was like some science fiction shit. I was like, I don't know about letting people shine lasers in my eyeballs. It sounds like some Clockwork Orange type shit, bro. I'm not down with that. But that's actually what it is. It started with moving a pencil or a pen, an object in front of people's eyes, and it turned into lights, and then it turned into the light bar that I showed you guys. And now they even have other methods that add to it, and I'll show some of those methods too.
The repetitive eye movement can be distracting or calming, and telling the story becomes easier. This is desensitization. Next, the feelings that go with the memories of awful, traumatic moments, or years of traumatic moments, can change. Those feelings shift during therapy, and how people think about themselves in relation to their memories can be dramatically different following EMDR. This is reprocessing. The memories start to have far less power than they did before the treatment. The best news is that EMDR usually doesn't take that long. The feeling that a person is stuck in the past can change with EMDR. People with PTSD can become fully present and live their lives the way they intend. PTSD can be treated, and people can get back to the lives they want to live.
Okay, yeah. Check out PsyCub if you're interested in psychology-related stuff. They're a pretty good channel. Got a lot of good shit here. There's actually, I'm going to save this webpage because there's a couple other videos over
Look
here.
on dollar.com to get our lowest rates.
Why are you in my house?
Go back, see if I can. There. Yeah, here we go. One right there. And there was another one. Ooh, see, I was looking for this video earlier and I couldn't find it. I had to get this other video, and I actually haven't watched this other video. So if this other video ends up being shit, we're gonna try this lady's video right here. But okay, anyways, so yeah, that's what EMDR therapy is. I'm gonna flop you over to this screen. Hi, hellos. So yeah, that's what EMDR therapy is. That's what it does for you. That's what it's used for. That's the general idea. Watching something move in front of you and then literally talking about your traumatic memory. And it's designed, like, yeah, it works great for PTSD because that is kind of what PTSD is based off as. It's a traumatic memory that fucks you up very badly. But even without needing it helps other things outside of PTSD. And well, I was gonna save that burp, but it was a silent one. Maybe hold on. Got a sister burp coming out. Okay, it passed. Anyways. So yeah, EMDR therapy works really good for PTSD, but it also it can work for a lot of other things too. If you have any level of memories that suck balls, because it's pretty hard to get out of childhood without some form of really shitty fucking memories, memories that make you feel like shit about yourself. It can be people picking on you. It can be a more intense event, traditionally a more intense event like getting your ass kicked, or what it would be, parental abuse or something horrible like that. How intense a memory is depends on the person. The reality of trauma is, yeah, there's certain things that we know for a fact cause trauma, but there's some people who can go through those things and there's no trauma. I have a friend who was a point man in Afghanistan during the war, and it was a regular thing. I mean, he came back. He brought the plate out of his Kevlar vest, and the plate in his Kevlar vest was dented in with all the times he had been shot and all these scrapes from when people had tried to stab him. Apparently, he would come through the door and they'd stick you and then run the knife up to try to gut you so they couldn't put you back together afterwards. And he has all these marks going up his plate from when he came through a door and some guy came at him with a knife, got him in the plate, and then tried to gut him. And he went through all that, killed tons and tons of people. And I mean, not tons and tons, but killed a good amount of people. And he's a fucking accountant in, like, I don't know, Georgia or some shit. Like, he's like a normal dude. He's one of the chillest normal dudes you probably ever met, dude. He's super fucking cool. You would never expect that he'd been through something like that. I know an older guy named Swede who was the same way. He was a captain in Vietnam. Had a platoon not a platoon, not what do they call that? Well, he had 200 men underneath him. And he had seen some really fucked up shit out in Vietnam, and I remember him telling me about it. You would never expect that guy had ever even been to war. You know, he was so calm, chill, relaxed, just fucking goose fraba and shit, you know, all centered and whatever, you know, chakras all open and shit. Really chill dude. And I don't know anything about chakras. I'm just saying he was all like that new age kind of chill, it felt like, right? Like where he's just super relaxed no matter what happens. And so, yeah, but other people, you know, there's some people, and you know, this isn't like to like call attention to certain people or nothing or make somebody feel like shit, but there's people that have like serious PTSD from a time when they were a kid and they walked around the corner and there was a big ass dog that barked in their fucking face and then blam, it just like fucked their head up, you know, because they were a little kid at the time. And that was like the most terrifying thing that ever happened to them. And the whole event itself just sparked, you know, it's just tweaked something in their brain, you know, and so, you know, a traumatic event can be anything to anybody. You know, it can be a lot of different stuff. You know, there's certain things that we classify as being obviously traumatic. Something fucked up or horrible, like getting raped or something, is obviously a traumatic experience. But then there's a lot of other things that can happen that are traumatic, that can be incredibly traumatic for the person who went through it, but it wouldn't be something that you would normally assume as traumatic, right? And it may not be, it might be traumatic, but just not to that extent. Like it still leaves them feeling like shit. It doesn't leave them with hardcore PTSD, but it decreases their self-confidence. It decreases their hope or their locus of control or any, you know, it mentally fucks with them still, right? It isn't full-blown PTSD, but it still causes issues in their life. And you know, EMDR therapy can help with those things too. So we're going to learn a little bit more about it. What is EMDR therapy for lay people? Eye movement desensitization. She said desensitization. I like desensitization. And reprocessing is a psychotherapy that enables people to heal from the symptoms and emotional distress that are the result of disturbing life experiences. Repeated studies show that by using EMDR therapy, people can experience the benefits of psychotherapy that once took years to make a difference. That is the thing about EMDR, is it does work fairly quick too. I mean, it's different for everybody. Some people can have to do it for years, but some, depending on, you know, how intense the memory is and how often you do it too. But some people can, you know, it can, for some people, it can start working in just a couple of weeks. It's pretty crazy. It is widely assumed that severe emotional pain requires a long time to heal. EMDR therapy shows that the mind can in fact heal from psychological trauma much as the body recovers from physical trauma. When you cut your hand, your body works to close the wound. If a foreign object or a repeated injury irritates the wound, it festers and causes pain. Once the block is removed, healing resumes. EMDR therapy demonstrates that a similar sequence of events occurs with mental processes. The brain's information processing system naturally moves toward mental health. If the system is blocked or imbalanced by the impact of a disturbing event, the emotional wound festers and can cause intense suffering. Once the block is removed, healing resumes. Using the detailed protocols and procedures learned in EMDR therapy training sessions, clinicians help clients activate their natural healing processes. That's for EMDR for clinicians. This Shapiro person is not, what's the famous Ben Shapiro, not that guy. This is, I believe this is a she, the woman who helped to create, essentially created or popularized EMDR therapy. So EMDR is a psychotherapy treatment that was originally designed to alleviate the distress associated with traumatic memories. I believe the woman who did this was something Shapiro in 1989. That was the year I was born. Shapiro's adaptive information processing model posits that EMDR therapy facilitates the accessing and processing of traumatic memories and other adverse life experience to bring these to an adaptive resolution. After successful treatment with EMDR therapy, affective distress is relieved, negative beliefs are reformulated, and physiological arousal is reduced. That's not the good kind of arousal either, right? That's not the I get the misses because we're going to party tonight kind of arousal, right? During EMDR therapy, the client attends to emotionally disturbing material in brief sequential doses while simultaneously focusing on the external stimulus. That would be the pencil or the laser in your eyeball or the light bar. Therapist-directed lateral eye movements are the most commonly used external stimulus, but a variety of other stimuli, including hand tapping and audio stimulation, are often used. The bilateral eye movement is the whole point, right? That's why I was talking about horizontally. You watch the pen with your eyes horizontally, right? That's literally why it's a horizontal bar. And when they're talking about other stimuli, that's actually, I got two of them, one of them. Well, I do have two of them, but I only have one set up these little fuckers are things they vibrate, right? So they're kind of like very unpleasant shaped little mini vibrators, I guess. I never thought of that. But anyways, you probably want to put one of these in your butt because they're pretty pointy. But these things you hold in your hands, no and nowhere else in your hands, and you sit and it stimulates vibration going through one arm into the through from one hand through your arms into the other hands and back again. So it still has a horizontal mode of simulation, and this stimulation is the same with audio too. You put in two headphones. I have a whole system for that comes with the light bar that simulates a sound moving from one ear to the other. And I can't do that one because my ears are fucked. I'm fairly deaf in my right ear. I'm like lost like 70% of my hearing in my right ear. So that one doesn't work so good for me. But the light bar really is where it's at. That one worked amazingly for me. But if that doesn't work for you, you can do the ear thing or the hand dildos if that's better for you, the vibrators. Anyways, Shapiro hypothesizes that EMDR therapy facilitates the accessing of the traumatic memory network so that information processing is enhanced, with new associations forged between the traumatic memory and more adaptive memories or information. These new associations are thought to result in complete informative information processing, new learning, elimination of emotional distress, and development of cognitive insights. So, more than 30 positive controlled outcome studies have been done on EMDR. We had a couple of them at the end of the stream we might go over if we have some time. Some of the studies show that 84 to 90% of single trauma victims no longer have post-traumatic stress disorder after only 3 90-minute sessions. That's pretty fucking crazy. After 3 90-minute sessions, that's a single trauma victim, meaning it's one instance in their life, right? Like they got beat up one time, real bad, kid on the playground, just kicked their ass, took their lunch money, single trauma that happened in their life. 84 to 90% of them no longer exhibit PTSD after only 3 90-minute sessions. That's pretty fucking crazy, dude. Another study funded by the HMO, Kaiser Permanente, found that 100% of the single trauma victims and 77% of multiple trauma victims were no longer diagnosed with PTSD after only 6 50-minute sessions. In another study, 77% of combat veterans were free of PTSD in 12 sessions. And that's pretty intense because combat PTSD is a whole nother thing because it's a consistent trauma. You are in combat every hour of the day, every day that you're out in the field, right? So it is a consistent feeling of traumatic. Well, you're constantly seeing and feeling like that stressor. And it's a big fucking stressor too. It's your life is literally on the line every second of the fucking day, for days on end sometimes. And then doing that for big swaths of time for several months, you're out on tour. That's a whole nother thing compared to one traumatic incident, right? It is a whole series of traumatic incidents that take place in a very small time frame, but a prolonged length of time still. But 70% of combat veterans free of PTSD in only 12 sessions. That's pretty crazy, right? There has been so much research on EMDR therapy that it is now recognized as an effective form of treatment for trauma and other disturbing experiences by organizations such as the APA, the American Psychiatric Association, the World Health Organization, and the Department of Defense. Given the worldwide recognition as an effective treatment of trauma, you can easily see how EMDR therapy would be effective in treating the everyday memories that are the reason people have low self-esteem. See, this is what I was talking about earlier. I know my shit. And I didn't even read this far into this slide at first, I promise. Feelings of powerlessness and all of the myriad of problems that bring them in for therapy. So, like I was saying just a little bit ago, right? This is the reason why I rant, okay? A lot of y'all think that I just rant for no fucking reason because I like to hear myself talk, and that's true, I do. But I also am ranting for a reason. And a lot of times when I'm ranting over shit, I am saying something that's at least semi-intelligent. And right here, this is what I'm saying. If you don't just use it for PTSD. A lot of times when you meet people who have very low self-esteem, take, for example, my buddy John, he was never in war as far as I'm aware. He could have had some other, I imagine he did. Yeah, he had some form of traumatic memories in his life. Maybe it was a traumatic event, but it was some form. I don't think he had PTSD, but I don't know for sure. I'm not a psychologist, but I don't think he had PTSD. He had incredibly low self-esteem. And maybe a few other issues there, but definitely low self-esteem that his ex-wife was taking advantage of. And that self-esteem was fixed going to EMDR. It was probably a lot of times when you meet people like that, that was a big reason that I went to EMDR. You know, cognitive behavioral therapy was good for highlighting specific therapies that I were engaging in that were fucking up my life. And the underlying assumptions that I had or views that I had about the world that fed into those behaviors. The reason why I felt like this behavior is a good behavior when it's very clearly not, you know, um, it helps with stuff like that, but EMDR therapy helps with confidence. That was something that really helped for me. I went in talking to a therapist with a lot of my issues resolved, but still having low self-esteem, especially after therapy. If you have a good therapist and they're doing it right, especially cognitive behavioral therapy, you'll sit in a therapist's office. I'm gonna rant again. You'll sit in a therapist's office, dude, and you'll get done and you'll feel like fucking shit about yourself. Sometimes you walk out and you feel really good about yourself, like you really accomplished something today. Other times, dude, you drugged up some you brought up some real nasty ass shit and realized that you are really fucked as a person, you know? And I don't mean like you're a bad person, just that man, you really um got some screws loose, or you just got some issues and you didn't realize how deep they went and how long they've been fucking up your life and how stupid you've been allowing them to fuck up your life. Right? You don't realize until you go to therapy, and then you're sitting there talking to the therapist and you're like, wow, dude, I am a fuck duck for real. And it makes you feel like shit about yourself. You walk out of there not feeling very good, man. You feel like walk out heavily judging yourself, you know, or at least I did, you know. It's probably different for everybody, but for me, you know, therapy, going out, you know, I would get out of a therapy session and I would need 2 or 3 hours before I did anything else. I would go home and I would take a nap and sleep because, you know, I would just, you know, want to go to bed, man, because I had so much energy just taken out of me. And a lot of bad thoughts of just like, man, I really fucking suck, dude. Like, I suck at this whole self esteem thing. You know, I'm screwing up this whole life thing real bad. And after a couple years of therapy, I did effectively change a lot of things about myself that I'm very proud of, but it did leave me with some level of low self esteem, having to go over all those memories and all those instances where I screwed the pooch, left me with low self esteem. And like John, he had low self esteem. A lot of people who just have low self esteem, it can be tied to just very specific memories in your past where something happened that just convinced you. Usually, when you're a kid, is a lot of times when it happens, because when you're a kid, you're a lot easier to convince of things. As an adult, you know, I worked in a detention center and a juvenile detention facility, high security juvenile detention facility. And all the kids in there were homicide cases, murderers, most of them gang related. And man, I went to work every day for 2 years. And every fucking day, dude, I would walk into work and I would have some little punk ass 16-year-old that killed 3 people, was a blood, in my face telling me how he's gonna beat my ass. I'm gonna fuck you up, you this, that, motherfucker. I'm gonna fuck your wife. I'm gonna fucking find out where you live, homie. I'm gonna kill you and this and that. You know, talking all kinds of nasty shit. And I would just sit there like, bro, like, all right, like, keep going, keep going. You done? You done? All right, I'm taking away your cup of noodles. No cup of noodles, because you're being an asshole. And, you know, until you decide to stop being an asshole, you don't get no more noodles. So that's what it is, bro. You can bitch, you can moan about it, you can threaten me, you can do whatever you want, but it is what it is. And then, you know, walk away, and that's that. You know, I would go home, and it would never occur to me to think, like, man, maybe that kid's right. Maybe I'm a pussy. Like, it would never occur to me, you know? Most people I know would not want to go through that every single fucking day for 2 years straight. Not every single day, you know, the way that the shifts worked there was 12-hour shifts. So it was only 3 to 4 days a week that you would be in there. 3 days on, 4 days off, 4 days on, 3 days off, right? So it was a good schedule. But yeah, it you know, most people, I mean, the turnaround rate for that job was 2 weeks. People would last 2 weeks before they'd come to the boss and be like, man, I can't do this, dude. I can't hack it. These kids are fucking little psychos, and they're just pieces of shit, dude. They treat the guards like shit. They say nasty things, and I can't hack it, dude. I'm either gonna beat the fuck out of one of these kids, or I'm going home and fucking crying my eyes out every night, bro. One or the other. And that's what people, you know, and you know, hey, like, we were chill. We're like, oh, dude, totally get it. These kids are little shitheads, and there's nothing you can do. You can't physically hurt them. They're kids. Right? Some punk ass kid, 16 years old, comes up to you and says, you know, I remember one kid said, yeah, I'm going to get my boys to find out where you live. I'm going to tell my boys about you. They're going to find out where you live. They're going to come to your house and rape your girlfriend. And I remember I had a kid say that to me. And most people, you have a kid say that to you, it don't matter how old he is. Anybody says that to you, the first gut reaction is, I'm going to beat the fuck out of you, bro. And that time when I was working there too, man, I was wrestling 4 or 5 times a week, dude. I was like, what was I, 10 to 11% body fat? I was fucking shredded. And I was a mean little fucking wrestling machine, dude. I would hit 2 hours, 3 hours in a night. So in one night, I would wrestle 15 to about 12 to 15 different guys. And in some of those cases, those were local regional MMA fighters, college wrestlers. You know, it wasn't uncommon for me to sit there, roll through guys, and I just rolled with 3 or 4 Marines, 2 or 3 college wrestlers, and 2 or 3 local MMA dudes. And so I'm sitting here talking to these, this kid says that. It's like, bro, dude, I'm thinking like, all I got to do is just kick that one leg out and I could drop you and knee to your fucking head. You would be done, bro. You would be drooling out the side of your mouth for the rest of your life, dude. You would never talk to anybody like this again. But you can't do that because he's a fucking kid, bro. You're a 30-year-old man and he's a kid. You can't go hurting kids like that. Doesn't matter what kind of shit they say to you. It's illegal and not cool. Not a morally righteous thing to do, right? So anyways, having that kind of self-control in that situation, man, the only reason I was able to go in there and take that kind of stuff was because I was an adult at that point. And that shit, it was like over my head. I don't take it seriously. And because I went through a lot of therapy too, that definitely helped. But when you're a kid, it's very different, dude. When you're a kid, especially a young kid, some of the memories that I had when I was a kid that actually fucked me up, they make me giggle nowadays to think of them, dude, because it's like, I can't believe I thought that was a big deal when I was a kid, but I did. I was, 8 years old when this fucking thing happened, and some dude, I don't know, looked at me and was like, you're fucking ugly, and I was like, oh God, he's so fucking right, and then like 8-year-old me believed it for the next like 20 years. That's not like an actual memory I have, but for the next like 20 years, that causes like a fucking issue where I like every time I go to talk to a girl, I remember some guy telling me you're fucking ugly. And that fucking, I feel like it, when you're a kid, that shit can wiggle its way into your brain and stick there. And you can end up feeling like shit about yourself for what are some of the silliest things ever. You would never consider that a traumatic experience because it's not a traumatic experience. It's just one instance where you were a kid and you took it to heart. And, as a kid, that shit happens, dude. As an adult, it happens a lot less. But when you're fucking 8-10 years old, dude, a parent having a rough day and just looking at you and saying some nasty shit to you can fuck you up for the next like 10 fucking years, dude. So, a lot of times people who have low self-esteem, it's a memory like that. They were a kid, somebody did something, said something, maybe a few times, and it convinced them that I'm worthless, I'm a piece of shit, I'm stupid, I'm ugly, I'm this, I'm unlovable, I'm this, that, or the other thing. And then they go about the rest of their lives feeling that. And that's really sad, dude. I mean, even think about that. Puts a tear in my eye that people are walking around feeling that way over some dumb shit, especially think of like a kid, feeling that. Man, that's sad. That's so sad to think about of a kid having to feel that way. A little bit of a cough. So, but it's the reality. For a lot of people with low self-esteem, that's a lot of times where it's stemming from. And EMDR is really, really good at helping with that, okay? So just because you weren't a bad motherfucker that went to war and dealt with that, constant stress of combat every day, doesn't mean that you didn't experience things when you were a kid that are fucking up your self-esteem. And if that's all it is, it's like, you're not outright showing any kind of mental or emotional disorder. You just got this kind of problem. EMDR therapy is a very suitable thing that can fix it, help you with it very, very quickly. So how does it do that? Rant's over. That's probably not going to be the last rant for the day, but I do enjoy my rants here on this channel. But it is we're done ranting for the moment. How does it help? EMDR. It's a a process called adaptive information processing, right? So we're going to kind of go over a little bit of the psychology behind it. What is this adaptive information processing? This bilateral eye movement. We're going to go over a couple examples of that, and then I'm going to kind of dive into what I know about the process, and then we're going to go through the actual process itself. And if we have any time left, we'll hit up those studies, or I might go back to one of these videos over Meow to talk about it a little more. But so, what is adaptive information processing? EMDR relies on the Adaptive Information Processing AIP model, a theory about how your brain stores memories. This theory, developed by Francine Shapiro, see, I knew it was a woman. God, I killed it. I'm killing this. Who also developed EMDR, recognizes that your brain stores normal and traumatic memories differently. During normal events, your brain stores memories smoothly. It also networks them, so they connect to other things you remember. During disturbing or upsetting events, that networking doesn't happen correctly. The brain can go offline, and there's a disconnect between what you experience, feel, hear, or see, and what your brain stores and memory through language. Often, your brain stores trauma memories in a way that doesn't allow for healthy healing. Trauma is like a wound that your brain hasn't been allowed to heal because it didn't have the chance to heal. Your brain didn't receive the message that the danger was over. Yeah, somebody once said, would you rather get shot or have your heart broken? And since I already had my heart broken at that point in my life, I was like, I would probably rather get shot. I would like the scar. I would like to be able to point at people and say, that's where I got shot. I'm a bad motherfucker, you know. But, you know, he said, yeah. Well, he said, yeah, but not for that reason, because that's a really dumb reason. He said, no, he was a psychologist that told me this. And it wasn't, I don't think he was my therapist. He was some other fucking guy. Who the fuck even said that? Well, whatever. It doesn't matter. One of those people whose face is gone, 'cause I must have smoked it away in a bong at some point in my life. But anyways, he, you know, he said, yeah, you know, you would want to get shot instead of have your heart broken, which, you know, looking at that nowadays, I'm kind of like, I don't entirely know about that, bro. Now that I'm older, when I was younger, I totally believed it. I was like, oh, yeah, you're so right, bro. It'd be better to have the scar. You know, having your heart broken can't necessarily kill you, you know, getting shot can. But he said, you know, once you get shot, it's healed. And you don't technically ever experience that pain again. You can remember what that pain feels like of getting shot. You get shot in the arm, you're going to, you know, it's going to heal over, and you can remember what it felt like to get shot in the arm. You're going to be like, oh, yeah, I remember how it burns, or how it was this, how it was that, how terrifying it was, the blood everywhere, you know, the feeling of my bones being shattered, all that horrible shit. I remember what it felt like, but you can't feel the pain again. The only thing that can make you feel that again is getting shot again, right? That's the only way you're going to get yourself to feel that pain again. But getting your heart broken, walking around with emotional trauma, you're going to feel it over and over again. It's going to be there, and you're going to feel it for a very long time. And anytime it pops up again, your memory, the way your memory works, you can remember exactly what it felt like that moment having your heart broken. You can relive it. After a while, you forget what it actually feels like, and you don't relive it anymore. You can remember it hurt. You can remember kind of what it felt like, but you can't relive it again. Unless it's a traumatic memory. Then in that case, you're constantly reliving it, or the pain from it is always there, right? So emotional pain is one of those really nasty things where it can stick around for much longer than physical pain can. And if it's a traumatic sort of issue, it can pop up again, and you can be right there again. You know, I've seen a video the other day of a guy, a soldier who was in Afghanistan, his PTSD response, something that happened, car backfire, whatever. He was in a parking lot, and he went into a PTSD response. He hunkered down behind the car and held his hands out like he had a gun in it, and just sat there and just sat there. And he almost went catatonic. People couldn't wake him up. They had to get an ambulance to come and safely get him out of this almost near catatonic state, because this was his PTS response, brought him literally mentally right back into being in the fucking shit with that gun raised up, you know, sitting in a fucking, I don't know, foxhole or whatever the fuck he was doing. But it literally brought his mind back to that memory, and he relived it. He was reliving it in that moment. He was reliving being right back in the middle of Afghanistan. And that's how dangerous and scary and sad emotional trauma can be. It's nothing to fuck with, you know? So anyways, newer experiences can link up to earlier traumatic experiences and reinforce a negative experience over and over again, right? Kind of like a tonguing the wound, yeah? That disrupts the links between your senses and memories. It also acts as an injury to your mind. And just like your body is sensitive to pain from an injury, your mind has a higher sensitivity to things you saw, heard, smelled, or felt during a trauma-related event. Yeah, this is how you get stuck back in that traumatic loop, how that trauma can get recalled. Particularly with PTSD, you hear something, like I was saying, like a car backfiring. A Swede, that guy, older fella I was mentioning about in Vietnam, he jumped every time he heard a loud noise, which is a very common thing you get with soldiers because it sounds like a gunshot. A car backfiring or a balloon popping can fuck them up. It can mentally, for a moment, put them back in that space where they're experiencing that trauma because it sounds like something they heard back in when they were at war. It sounds like the gunshot, right? Something you smelled or something you saw can do the same thing. This happens not only with events you can remember, but also with suppressed memories. Much like how you learn not to touch a hot stove because it burns your hand, your mind tries to suppress memories to avoid accessing them because they're painful or upsetting. However, the suppression isn't perfect, meaning the injury can still cause negative symptoms, emotions, and behaviors. That's a very true one, man. When I did EMDR therapy, I had one of the first, we'll get into the phases, but one of the first things you do, not one of the first, but yeah, I guess it is one of the first, not the first, but one of the first things you do with your therapist is make a list of some of the more fucked up issues or some of the more fucked up memories that you have. And it's pretty interesting once you really get into it. My list completely changed, and there were things memories that popped up that I completely fucking forgot, that totally forgot even going through. And, I even remember starting with the therapist on it, going through a couple sessions, and then in one session being like, I'm remembering this other thing that happened. And he's like, okay, like, what's that memory? And I said it, and he's like, why are we working on this memory? This memory that we're working on is nothing compared to that memory. Like, that memory is a fucked up memory, dude. That is a scary thing to happen as a kid. I can't believe that you didn't bring that up and put it on your list. And I was like, dude, I completely fucking forgot that even happened to me. And it wasn't that I forgot, it was that you suppress it. It's such a shitty thing to have to deal with. You tuck it in a corner and then you do your best to forget about it. But unfortunately, symptoms from that memory can still be there. So, triggers. Sights, sounds, and smells. This is kind of what we were talking about. Triggers with the whole hearing the gunshot thing, right? Sights, sounds, and smells with a connection or similarity to a traumatic event will trigger those improperly stored memories. Unlike other memories, these can be overwhelming feelings of fear, anxiety, anger, or panic. An example of this post-traumatic stress is post-traumatic stress disorder, or PTSD, flashback, where improper storage and networking causes your mind to access those memories in a way that's uncontrolled, distorted, and overpowering. That's why people with a history of flashbacks describe feelings as if they were reliving a disturbing event. The past becomes the present. So, what does EMDR do about it? Reprocessing and repair is what it does. When you undergo EMDR, you can access memories of a trauma event in very specific ways. Combined with eye movement and guided instructions, accessing those memories helps you reprocess what you remember from the negative event. That reprocessing helps to repair the mental injury from that memory. Remembering what happened to you will no longer feel like reliving it, and the related feelings will be much more manageable. Yeah, what it essentially does, because I guess we haven't gotten into this, but it's a good point to bring up. You don't forget the bad thing that happened to you, right? All the memories that I resolved during EMDR therapy, I still remember them. They're still there, and I still remember them. But what it is it's like how I describe it, you're seeing it happen to somebody else. It's a thing that you can say, oh yeah, that happens, and it is what it is, and that's a shitty thing to happen, but there isn't an emotional reaction to it. It kind of takes the emotional part of the memory and kind of scrubs it away and helps you to disassociate from it in a way that, like, I can remember it, but at this point, it's almost grainy, right? Like, it's almost kind of like watching a really old black and white movie from a third person perspective, whereas the memory used to be a very vivid first person perspective memory, right? Like, when I remember it happening to me. I remember looking at it and seeing it happen and can remember it in vivid detail, where now the details are a little bit kind of like it's still there, like I remember them, but I'm disassociated from it. It's like almost like it happened to somebody else. It's been so long since it happened, which is typically how memories work. There is some memories that you have from when you were a kid that are very vivid, but most of your memories are grainy. They're darkening at the edges. They're slowly going away, and you're remembering less and less details about them. You might not even remember some of the more pertinent details of certain memories. You remember the thing happens, but you can't remember who you were with when it happens, or what their reaction was to it, or what you did after it happened, or anything like that. And that's more typical of a memory that's 20 years old. It isn't normal to have a 20-year-old memory and it's vivid like that. You know, that's not how memories are usually most of the time. Okay. That only happens with really traumatic memories or incredibly special memories too, can do that, you know? So here's a good list of what conditions EMDR treats, because like I said, it doesn't just treat post-traumatic stress disorder. Its most widespread use is for PTSD, but mental health care providers also use it in the treatment of the following conditions: anxiety disorders, like generalized anxiety disorder. Went over that last week. Generalized anxiety disorder is one of the more common, one of the top 6 most common mental health disorders in America. Phobias and social anxieties or phobias can be helped with EMDR. Depression disorders, again, depression, major depressive disorder is another one of the top 6 most common mental health disorders in America. Persistent depressive disorder and illness related depression. There is even something called seasonal depression, which I did not realize that was a thing, but that's a fucking thing. You can actually have depression that only happens in a specific season of the year, which is crazy. Wild. Dissociative disorders like dissociative identity disorder, amnesia, or depersonalization or derealization disorder. Yeah, well, there you go. See, social anxiety disorder a lot of times does stem from a particular memory that you had when you were a kid where, you know, I guess something embarrassing or traumatic happened, right? You either got made fun of or yeah, right. Like, well, that's a very common one, actually. Not going to stores alone is an issue. Um, yeah, that's a very common one. I'm talking to my chat for everybody who's on um YouTube. I'm talking to my chat. But yeah, going to stores alone is actually a very common one. Sean's girlfriend actually has that, Judy. She said the same thing. Like she doesn't like to go to the grocery store by herself. A lot of, that's a very common one that you get. And anyways, like going to the store, another one is going to the gym. A lot of people don't too much social anxiety to go to a gym and exercise in front of other people. Some people have social anxiety disorders. You're really good at public speaking, but some people have a absolute fear of public speaking. That can be, those type of social anxieties they don't always, but they can stem from some kind of traumatic memory that put it in you that, oh, this is a scary situation, or this is a freaky situation, or this is a situation where I'm not prepared for it, right? And that can come from a really bad memory, and EMDR therapy would work for repairing that memory. So it does work very well for that. But yeah, anyways, that definitely fits in there, hot stuff. What did I just do? Uh-oh, I did something. Hold on. Oh, there we go. Give me 1 second. I'm fiddle fucking. There we go. Okay. We'll keep that up. Let's see. And then eating disorders. Eating disorders, anorexia nervosa, and bulimia nervosa are again 2 very common mental health disorders nowadays. Binge eating disorder, those can be helped with EMDR therapy. Obsessive compulsive disorder, OCD, again, another one of the top 6 most common mental health disorders. Body dysmorphic disorder and hoarding disorders. The hoarding disorder was crazy. We read about that last Monday too. So if you're interested in reading about all those different disorders, check out my video from last month or from last Monday, the most common mental health disorders. Personality disorders, borderline personality disorder, avoidant personality disorder, and antisocial personality disorder, and then trauma disorders like acute stress disorder, PTSD, and adjustment disorders. So all of those can be helped with EMDR therapy, right? So how common is it? EMDR therapy is very common around the world. In the United States, the Department of Veterans Affairs and Department of Defense list EMDR as a best practice in treating veterans experiencing PTSD. Research on EMDR includes dozens of clinical trials, research studies, and academic papers. It has official approval from the WHO and in government organizations and agencies in the United Kingdom, Australia, and Germany, among others. Is EMDR therapy controversial? There's some controversy surrounding why EMDR works. The creator of EMDR, Dr. Francine Shapiro, later developed a working theory about how your brain stores memories after accidentally discovering the eye movement technique she later used to create this therapy technique. However, that controversy doesn't extend to whether or not EDM does work. Dozens of controlled trials and research studies have analyzed EMDR and shown that it is effective. So, a large portion of the controversy around EMDR is why it works. And I do have one theory that I am aware of, what it was explained to me by my therapist. Um, but yeah, they're not entirely sure why it works. We're going to move on from this slide to this video. This is a perfect time. Let me bring the chat back over. Meow. This is a perfect time to dive into this video to talk about bilateral stimulation. How does it work in EMDR therapy, right? So let's take a gander. This is one theory for how or why EMDR therapy works the way that it does. So here, let me throw you back over to the YouTube channel. Yeah, there. Okay, let's.
One of the things about EMDR, which is perhaps the most novel part for most individuals, is the BLS, or bilateral stimulation. Therapeutically, we have those two elements. We have a dual attention, one foot in the trauma past, one foot in the present with the therapist now. That's common to many different therapeutic modalities, but the bilateral stimulation, or BLS, is different. BLS, for a long time, made EMDR very controversial. For some, it remains so. However, the studies that deconstructed EMDR to look at its effectiveness began to look at BLS in more detail. I want to give you a few broad brush rules of thumb around BLS and why it's important. Firstly, we know now from the research that BLS is not simply some sort of pixie dust that we add to our therapeutic process to dress it up. It is causing meaningful, measurable, and demonstrable change within the central nervous system. And this can be measured and has been shown in a number of different studies now. BLS can be thought of as, in a very broad sense, being pro-parasympathetic. That if we did nothing else except BLS with you as an individual, that all of the metrics that we could normally measure to show some degree of a relaxation effect, such as galvanic skin response, heart rate variability, and blood pressure, that all of these things would show a relaxation effect from somebody doing BLS with you. But it's much richer than that. The Dutch have very much leaned into the effects of BLS as being involved in taxing working memory. Whenever we do BLS for a minimum of 25 seconds, it's been demonstrated that that is sufficient to tax working memory. Why is that important? Well, EMDR, although we have the 8-phase 3-prong protocol with the procedural steps, the reality is we're only doing 3 things within phases 3 to 7, the reprocessing phases. What we're effectively doing is we identify and activate a memory network that then makes that memory network vulnerable to change. We change it, and then we stabilize it again. And so information once activated, if we can tax working memory, it makes it hard for the brain to hold on to that information and reconsolidate all of it. Therefore, some of it is lost. And what we see after BLS is that the studies show that we see a reduction in the vividness of a trauma memory, and we see a reduction in the emotionality. So BLS, within taxing working memory theory, we see that it's doing those 2 things. The taxing working memory is a very, very important theory, I think, and it's really useful, and I find it very helpful as a clinician. However, I don't believe it's the full picture. If we look at some studies which have taken a look at the neurobiology in a bit more detail, that one of the things that shows up is there is a system or a function within the central nervous system and the nervous system in general, which I believe can partly explain how the brain is working within the BLS effects upon the brain. And that's a phenomenon we call stochastic resonance, or we can simply think of that as helpful randomness. Now, stochastic resonance within the brain, let's look at it this way. Jim Knight gave me the example of a coffee shop. if you and I wanted to discuss something really private in a coffee shop, then imagine if everybody in this coffee shop is sitting in silence. This is like the brain in trauma. Some of the normal background noise is missing in the traumatized brain. And this is a signal which is normally coming from the cortex to the thalamus. Well, we wouldn't feel very comfortable talking because I think everybody's sitting around me listening to me or about to hear what I'm going to say because they're not having their own conversation. So it would inhibit what we're going to or would be willing to talk about. Now let's imagine a normal coffee shop. Everybody's talking, there's maybe music in the background. That helpful background random noise means I'm no longer worried. So I feel more comfortable to communicate. So I'm going to talk to you about this private conversation that I want to mention. But the other thing that it helps is because I'm deaf, it means I have to focus on you more intently because I have to pay attention to you because there is this background noise that could potentially distract me. And indeed, that's exactly what the BLS is doing, that we see from the research that it improves communication and also focus. And so when BLS is being used as a part of the procedural steps of EMDR, we're getting both of those things. It's facilitating communication within the brain, it's improving focus, it's increasing a relaxation effect, and it's also decreasing vividness and emotionality, all things which you will recognize are important within the procedural steps.
Okay. I'm going to be honest. I have no idea what that guy said. I wasn't listening. I was trying to hook up my EMDR thing. I just charged it. I haven't used it in so long. Because here coming up, I'm going to give you guys like a demonstration so you can actually see how that bilateral stimulation looks. This girl's going to give you a stimulation too. She is going to show you how it works. A simulation? Yeah, a simulation of how it works. She's not going to stimulate you. You're not that lucky. All right, chill. So, yeah, check it out. Check out this girl's simulation. Oh, there's a... Okay, when you're losing your cool, do this to find your calm. So this is her method of using bilateral stimulation for calming yourself. And there is sound to it. And of course, it's a rinky-dink song. We can mute that. We'll keep it muted. But yeah, notice what she's doing is bilateral stimulation. She's moving her eyes left and right. Same thing you would be doing if you had a pen in front of her face, right? If I was moving a pencil in front of her, it would do the same thing with her eyes, right? That's her little life hack for calming yourself when a child is freaking out. Here it is. This brain hack will save you countless moments of snapping or yelling at your kids. It is called bilateral movement, and it's our brain's natural hack. Our eyes doing this naturally during REM sleep, rapid eye movement, to process our emotions and replenish our brains. So when you feel your body tensing up, do this whenever you are, and your brain will naturally increase the processing of your emotions to shortcut to feeling calm. By naming something you see, you are distracting your brain from the stressor, allowing it time to de-escalate. Our brains can only focus on one thing at a time, so this force is a reset. You can use this bilateral processing with other things too. You can alternatively tap your hands. I was just going to say, tapping from one finger to the other, right? Tap my thumb and my pointer finger on the other hand, then do it on the other hand, right? You can alternately tap your hands, your feet, rub the top of your legs, alternatively, whatever works in the moment for you. The important thing is that you take charge of your trigger and stop letting the trigger take charge of you. We can have big emotions and not let them take over and ruin our behavior. I think they said she was a child psychologist, so this isn't just some random ass woman. I mean, she could still be a random ass woman. There's plenty of people on the internet saying, "Oh, I'm a fucking child psychologist and this and that," and they're not shit. I don't know. I didn't look into her. Maybe you can. But what she's describing really is the most important thing. I don't know how it actually works in the moment for de-escalation purposes. I have my own particular hacks for that I actually used while I was a correctional officer, because there's a lot of de-escalation you have to do. You have to de-escalate yourself a lot. But this one wasn't one of them. But the process that she's showing you is legit. That's the bilateral stimulation, and I'm gonna pop back over y'all. Hello, hellos to all. Yeah, what she's talking about is the real deal, right? So that bilateral stimulation, and notice she said REM sleep. Okay, so I want to share with you guys what a therapist shared with me. That's why we're on the big rant screen. I'm not really a fan of the screen at the moment. My beard is all needs trimmed, obviously. It's getting a little crazy up here, getting a little Chewbacca. I was thinking about taking the whole thing off here. So next time you guys see me, I might be beardless. Okay, so anyways, yeah, that, not the burp or the beard thing, but the mention of REM sleep is a good segue into how I understand this processing working. One of the theories, potential theories for how EMDR therapy works. So EMDR therapy simulates bilateral eye movement specifically. There's different kinds of bilateral stimulation. Like I brought out little vibrators that you hold in your hands. It vibrates one hand, then the other, then that, and then the other, and it slowly moves from one hand to the other. Audio stimulation slowly moves like a sound from one hard pan from one ear to the other, to the other, to the other. That bilateral stimulation can happen in a lot of different ways, but the most common way is using a light, which I was able to hook up, by the way, while you were watching that video. So we're ready to go on that. I'll show you how that works. I got it all set up. But anyways, how bilateral eye stimulation works. It's your eye moving from one side to the other, right? Bilateral, one side to the other, right? Pretty self-explanatory. Well, that is one of the movements your eyes makes during REM sleep. Your eyes make a whole series of various different types of movement, or they can make a whole lot of different kinds of movements while you're asleep. We all know what REM sleep is. REM sleep, rapid eye movement, is what that stands for. Those are your really deep sleep. When you enter into really deep sleep, you're right. If you have a spouse and you feel like being creepy one day, look at their eyes while they're in really deep sleep, right? Like once they start like snoring, right? They're lying beside you. They're just going crazy. Take a look at their eyes. Ignore that giant pig noise coming out of their mouth and watch their eyes. And you'll see their eyes moving behind their eyelids. Like you can see the eyelid kind of flickering while their eye is moving. They are in REM sleep. And you don't have to get a lot of REM sleep per night. I think usually you enter REM into like 30-minute bouts for only 30-minute windows at a time, I think is what it is. Like, or I think it amounts to like 20 to 30 minutes every 2 hours or something like that is REM sleep. But that's the most restful sleep, okay? So this is a theory. It's not a fact, but a theory behind why EMDR therapy works the way it does, right? So when you're sleeping, it is posited that when you have certain memories, okay, traumatic memories, bad memories, specifically just shitty memories that you want to, forget, your brain does have a self-cleaning mechanism. It gets rid of not the memory, but the emotional connection to that memory. So it's important to understand how memories work, okay? Or the theory for how memories work, okay? So when let's say you have a memory, right? You go out and you take your girlfriend out on a really awesome date. Okay, you guys go to the mall, right? You go to the mall, you go to TGI Fridays, right? And you smell the food. You're like, oh, it smells so good in here. You look at your pretty gal or guy, whatever you're with, guy, gal, whatever, what floats your boat. You look at your significant other and you think, wow, she's so fucking pretty. And you feel this happiness in you. You feel so happy with that moment. And you form a memory. Without you knowing it, you just formed a memory. And let's say that this is a very important memory to you, right? How that memory is created is in order. Like, so every sensation I just described, let's say the sensation of smell happens in the olfactory component of your brain. That's what it's called, is the olfactory lobe. Is that what well, it's something like that. The olfactory lobe. I'm like halfway there. Okay. So I might not remember the whole fucking thing, but I remember the olfactory part of it, right? That's the part of your brain that processes smell. Okay. That part of your brain saves a little cluster of neurons, which is information about what you smelled at TGI Fridays. Then a neural link, not Neuralink, that's the thing Elon Musk invented, a neural pathway would travel to the other part of your brain, because the next thing that happened was you saw your girlfriend and thought, wow, she's so beautiful, right? It'll travel to a neural pathway will connect that neuron cluster in your olfactory, the smell of mozzarella sticks, and it'll connect to through your white matter, which is the matter that it's what connects the gray matter, which is the big old chunks of brain. White matter is what keeps your brain together, connects it all, and it's filled with neural pathways. The neural pathway will wind through the white matter in your brain and go to the part of your brain that processes sight. I forget what that part's called. That part of your brain, there's another neuron cluster, which is a piece of information, that part of that memory, where you remember what your girlfriend looked like that day. And then another neural pathway will travel back through the white matter in your brain to your limbic system over here, which is a part of your brain that stores emotional information, creates some emotional responses, handles all emotional processes. I believe it's the hippocampus. No, that's your memory. The hippocampus, well, hippocampus is, where memory is initially. We'll get into that in a minute. But yeah, limbic system, it's a part of the limbic system that holds emotional information. A neuron cluster will form there that will hold the emotional information from that memory, that feeling of happiness and love and excitement, and then travel into your hippocampus. So every time, which the hippocampus stores its own cluster of neurons that has essentially like that memory. It's kind of like the file that you would click on in your computer to open up the memory. That's in your hippocampus now. And every time you remember that memory, what the memory actually is you experiencing those neuron clusters. A little piece of a little bit of electricity fires off in those neuron clusters in the exact order that the memory was created. So first you remember the smell, then the sight, then the emotion, and that's the memory. Okay, that right there, all those neuron clusters connected by that long neural pathway going all around your brain, that's the memory. Okay, when you have a unfortunate memory, there's going to be a cluster of neurons, and unfortunately, it's a really big cluster of neurons. The more traumatic the memory, the bigger that cluster of neurons is. A lot of information stored in your amygdala. I believe it's amygdala. The information, the part of your limbic system that stores negative information, right? Negative emotions, excuse me. So if you had a memory that makes you feel sad or scared or angry, you're going to have a cluster of neurons in your amygdala. And what bilateral eye movement does, or what it's posited when you're sleeping in REM sleep only in REM sleep, when your eyes begin to move bilaterally, what it's doing is it's actually scrubbing away that neuron cluster in your amygdala. It's taking those negative emotions and breaking up that neuron cluster in your brain, removing it. And eventually, given enough nights of REM sleep, enough good, solid, deep sleeps, that neuron cluster will be gone. And you'll have the other neuron clusters. You'll remember still have the memory. You'll still have a file in your hippocampus for that memory. And when you are reminded of that memory, you'll get a little bit of electricity that'll run through that neural pathway and hit all those neural clusters, except it won't hit the one that's in the amygdala because it's not there anymore. Meaning you can remember the sights, the sounds, the smells from that memory. You remember what happens. All the information of what actually happens is stored in your brain, but there is no emotion attached to it. You can remember being angry. You can remember how much that memory makes you angry, but it doesn't make you angry in the moment. You see what I'm saying? Because there isn't a neuron cluster in your amygdala that's firing off anymore. Excuse me. So that is literally what your brain, or what is assumed your brain is doing during REM sleep. That's why people say time heals all wounds. Well, yeah, I mean, if you're cut in half, and time isn't going to heal you there. It's unfortunate. But, it means for physical wounds, yeah, you get a bruise. With time, that bruise is going to go away. But emotionally, a lot of people say that when they're talking emotionally, time heals all wounds. You'll get over that broken heart. And you do with time. It isn't time itself that does it. It's enough deep REM sleeps. Your brain scrubs those emotions away from that memory of you getting your heart broken. Burping left and right, even in the middle of these serious conversations. Can't even have a serious conversation anymore, you know? If I was a dad and I had a kid, I would never be taken seriously because every time I'd go to scold him, I would just burp right in the middle of the fucking sentence and he would never take me seriously. So your brain in REM sleep that's what's healing that emotional wound. It's the bilateral eye movement. And that is what's being simulated during EMDR therapy using a light bar. So here's a light bar, and I'm gonna simulate this for you now. Well, this isn't even a simulation. I'm actually just gonna show you what it actually looks like. So if you're in EMDR therapy here, we're gonna go like this. Put it right here. There we go. That works. This works even better. Okay, like this. So this would be the light bar that would look at. So this is what an actual, like what you would actually be doing in EMDR therapy once you get to the point where it's time to go over that memory. Okay. Oh, you know what? Before we do this, I got ahead of myself. I got all excited, probably got you excited. You're over there like, whoa, with your popcorn. And now I'm like, oh, wait, fuck you. Hold on. Take 2 steps back. Sorry about that. So cock blocking you here. Yeah. So that process that I was just discussing, your brain erasing that cluster of neurons, you know, it does it using REM sleep, but a prerequisite of it is for your brain to relive the memory while you're doing bilateral simulation. So it isn't just bilateral simulation yourself. If you just sit in a chair and just move your fucking eyes back and forth like this, you know, and people are staring at you like, what the fuck is he doing? Like, that's so weird. Why are you so fucking weird? Well, the truth is you're just being fucking weird. You're not actually fixing your broken memories just because you're moving your eyes back and forth, right? You're not fixing your traumatic memories. You know, if it was that easy, you could be like, well, shit, why do I need a fucking therapist? Why do I even need to sleep? I'll just sit here in my chair and just move my fucking eyes back and forth until I feel better about everything. It doesn't work like that. You have to, again, the reason why you're going to therapy, like that video was describing, the guy was telling you, you have to stimulate bilateral, create bilateral stimulation while you are discussing the memory, while you are reliving the memory. And your brain does that during REM sleep too. Your brain actually doses you with oh god, what's that hallucinogen called? It's a lot of fun. DMT. DMT. Your brain doses you with DMT while you're asleep and you dream. Have you ever woken up? Right, you've done this. I know you've done this because I've done this and so has everybody else. And I'm weird, but I'm not that abnormal. We've all had the experience of waking up and you thought of some random ass person, like an ex-boyfriend or ex-girlfriend from like 12 years ago. They were in your dream, right? You wake up and you're like, why the fuck was that person in my fucking dream? Like, I haven't thought of that stupid bitch in like 12 fucking years, 10 years. That was 10 years ago. I can't believe I even remember her. Why was she in my fucking dream? You know? And it's always something weird, right? Like she pops up in your dream with like fucking lobster claws or some shit and, you know, is cooking you a cupcake. I don't know where that came from, but it's something like that, right? And something that makes no fucking sense. And you wake up and you're like, why the fuck was I thinking of that person? You know, why the fuck did they have lobster claws? You know? And you're like, what a weird ass dream, man. Crazy. Well, a lot of what's happening is your brain is dosing you with DMT. You're hallucinating, which explains the cupcakes and the lobster claws and all the weird shit that happens in the dream. But your brain is taking components of a memory, reliving that component of the memory while it is scrubbing that neuron cluster in your amygdala. It has to relive some part of the memory. Yeah, right. Fuck her, right, cutie? That dumb bitch with the lobster claw. She's got nothing on you, just so you know. All right. So, yeah, I'm talking to chat for everybody on YouTube. I got to start just popping it out and putting it over here. Otherwise, people are like, what the fuck are you doing? Oh, I can't do that. That's right, because I'm on my what do I call this camera? Oh yeah, my rant cam. I wonder how I can put that in here. No. Okay. All right. Well, whatever. Well, it's not that important. I'm talking to the chat. Okay. I'm not talking to myself, everybody. I mean, I guess most of the stream is me talking to myself since but either way, any case. So, yeah, if I say something completely unusual, it's because my cutie pie is in the chat. Thank you for chatting with me, by the way, cutie pie. I always like having somebody to actually talk to during these streams. So I appreciate you very much. And yeah, so you'll get this dream, this weird ass dream. The dream is weird because you're on DMT, but you'll remember this random ass person from your past because, especially if we're talking about like an unfortunate memory, like an ex that you don't want to remember. She broke your heart, he broke your heart, whatever it is. Your brain is dosing you with DMT, so you're not remembering the entire memory. It's just pulling a piece of that memory out. And then it's using bilateral movement to scrub the emotions that are attached to this part of the memory. So it's taking this person that fucked you over in the past and scrubbing the negative emotions connected to their image, right? And then it's giving them lobster claws because you're on DMT and that happens sometimes. So, that's what the actual process is. So when you're in therapy and you're looking at this light bar, you're not just watching the light go back and forth. You're actually watching the light go back and forth. It would look something like this. This app, by the way, what I have here, this EMDR kit that I purchased, was expensive. This was about a $500 kit. I know it's a piece of plastic with a fucking light in it, and it sounds like I got screwed, but trust me, that's far cheaper than an actual therapist. And also want to say too here, disclaimer, don't go buy yourself one of these and just try to do it on your own. You should do this with an actual therapist. I did this with a therapist for about almost a year before I bought my own light bar. And when I mean I was doing it with them for a year, I mean I was doing it about 2 to 3 times a week for a year. Okay. So that was a lot of money. That costed a lot of money. That was like we're talking, what was that? I was getting a discount, but still it was like $90 a session 3 times a week, right? $270 a week doing EMDR therapy. So it's fucking expensive, okay? I used to be rich. I'm poor now because of EMDR therapy. So, that's why I invested in the light bar. But I had a lot of experience with a therapist doing it. And then spent a little bit of extra time getting some like online classes on it and learning how to do it myself. I never did get certified in it because it cost a lot of money to get the certification and you had to go to like a retreat and shit. And I was like, well, I'm not going to do that. So I just went and bought the thing and started doing it on my own. Okay. But I highly recommend that you actually get a therapist to do it with you for a good long while until you understand the process. Right. So anyways, gotta nasty human noise, snot all up in my nose. Okay, so anyways, this EMDR kit that I got was about a $400 or $500 kit, but it attaches to your phone, and I can control the color of light that I'm using. It's green now. There's a yellow light, pink light, blue, right, and then red. Okay, so I can control what color of light I'm using, and then I can control the brightness of the light. See, there's super bright, supposedly super dim. Oh, let's see here. Dim, bright. There you go. See, now it's getting brighter. There's a super bright blue, super dim blue. And then I can width. What's the width? What does the width do? Oh, wow. Look at that. I didn't even know it did that. Okay, so that's the width. And then I can adjust the speed of it. Here's really slow speed. Interesting. Okay, you can't see that because here. So let me try to back away from the camera. I'm going to have to back away from my microphone. So see how it's going from one side to the other? There. With mode. Oh, that's blink. Okay, that's why. There we go. This is what I wanted. So see it sweeping across from one side to the other. And I'm still not getting how to hold it correctly for the camera. Over here. There we go. Yeah, so you would watch this literally sweep. Okay, hold on. I gotta try to. No. I'm getting my directions fucked up because I'm watching it in a camera. So you'd follow it with your eyes. Okay, that was a relatively slow sweep back and forth, and then you can even get to faster and faster depending on the faster the speed is, See, there we go. Now we're getting into really fast. The faster the speed is, the brighter the light is, usually the more intense the session can be. Depending on speed and whatnot, really the faster the bilateral movement is, the stronger it can potentially work. But we're going to give it a pause right there. But the harder it is to keep up. If you're not keeping up with the light, or the light is so distracting that you can't think, then it doesn't work. You have to do it at a speed that you're comfortable with. But the faster the speed, I think this is the speed that I usually sit at. Nice, easy speed. And then while you're watching this light go back and forth in this light bar, you would discuss your painful memory. You would start talking about it. You'd say, okay, well, this one time I fucking met this guy and he was a real fucking asshole, bro. And you'd go through your fucking traumatic memory or whatever while you're watching this light go back and forth. So that's actually what the light looks like. That's what it does. Yeah, I just wanted to pull that out for you guys. It's been a while since I've used it, so I had to charge it up and everything. But yeah, I figured, well, it's up there. It's just sitting up there in the back. Might as well bust it out for you guys so you can actually see what a demonstration of using a light bar in EMDR therapy would look like. They used to just hold like a light, like a laser pointer kind of thing, but not a laser pointer because, laser pointer in the eyeball can be, I think it's not good for you. I don't really know. I'm not a laser pointer expert. Okay, fucking sue me. But they would take a pen with a little light on the ends and they would go back and forth in front of the camera, and you'd have to, not in front of a camera, but in front of your face, and you'd have to follow it with your eyes, and you don't follow it like this, neither. You don't go like this, it has to be with your eyes. You see my eyes? Stare into my eyes. That's what you're doing, right? So, anyways, yeah. That's what EMDR therapy does. That's what it looks like. That's the process of it. And then you go through and relive that traumatic memory while you're watching that light go back and forth. And thus you are stimulating or simulating REM sleep. That's actually what REM sleep, that's what you're doing during REM sleep, except in REM sleep, your brain is dosing you with DMT and then recalling certain fragments of the memory and then doing the bilateral eye movement on its own. And the theory posits that bilateral movement is a sort of scrubbing mechanism for your limbic system, which is where the amygdala, specifically where you hold negative emotions associated with that memory, right? So that's what it looks like. We're going to go over the protocol, what it would be like to be in an EMDR session, right? Because we've gone over what it is. You guys got a pretty good understanding of it now. Y'all are some EMDR fucking experts over here. I'm going to put you back on this screen. You're not going to notice all the crazy hairs on my beard. And you know what it is. You know what it's used for. Now you got a pretty good idea of how it works, right? And what the session would kind of look like, what you would be doing in the course of EMDR therapy. One of the many theories behind why it works. I think that British or Scottish or Irish fellow or whatever he was, he had his own theory of why it was, because it's calming and distracting. But that's another theory, the one that I just described. So you have a couple different theories on how it works now. Like I said, that is a part of the controversy with EMDR therapy. Nobody quite knows how it works, but they just know that it is very effective. Now we're going to go over what the actual process would look like. What if you decided, okay, Tony, all right, look, you got me sold. You're a fucking amazing salesman, and I'm sold on your EMDR bullshit. I'm going to go out and do this and help myself with that traumatic memory of that time a fucking dog barked at me and fucked me up. And okay, cool. Good for you, man. That was kind of the whole point of the video, right? Was to share this information with you guys. And if this sounds like something you could use in your life, well, go out and use it. Now, the next step would be to go look for a therapist. But I did want to share with you what the 8 phases are, because there's 8 phases of EMDR treatment. So this is what the actual treatment process will more or less look like once you have a really good therapist. Again, because if you're going to go out and get a therapist, I know you're going to be smart about it and get a good therapist, not the asshole therapist that's going to convince you to kill yourself because they don't like the sexual organ in between your legs or whatever their deal is. But the therapist that gives a fuck about their job and cares about you and wants to help you, right? That's pretty important. So you're going to go out, do the groundwork, find a good therapist. This is what the process is going to kind of look like once you're with the therapist. So it happens in 8 phases. Okay. Treatment description, phase 1. The first phase is history taking sessions. The therapist assesses the client's readiness and develops a treatment plan. Client and therapist identify possible targets for EMDR processing. Oh, so I guess that is the first phase. You know, it's been a while since I've done it, but okay, yeah, see, I got phase 1 and 2 mixed up. But phase 1 is essentially making a list. Well, it's talking with the therapist. A therapist, too, another reason you want to do this with a therapist is because you might not be ready for EMDR therapy. It's not advisable to do by yourself because there are certain things that a therapist knows to pay attention to, like your body language, that you're not going to be able to be able to pay attention to yourself for the most part. So they'll be able to tell just how much distress you're in during the memory. And if you get into too much distress, they can pull it back, and they know how to pull it back. And doing it on your own, you could potentially put yourself into a PTSD episode without meaning to. So you don't want to do that. That's no good. So first, though, the therapist is going to make sure that this is going to help you, that you are ready to undergo this. And if you're not, then there might be some talk therapy or something that happens before then. Then you're going to make a list of targets. Targets are memories, target memories that you want to deal with. These include distressing memories and current situations that cause emotional distress. Other targets may include related incidents in the past, right? So they're going to be distressing memories or current situations in your life that are fucking you up, and then related instances from the past that sort of they work to reinforce that negative belief or feeling, that negative emotion that you get from the traumatic memory. Emphasis is placed on the development of specific skills and behaviors that will be needed by the client in future situations. Okay, so this brings us to phase 2, those skills that you need to develop. During the second phase of treatment, the therapist ensures that the client has several different ways of handling emotional distress. That's the skill set. That's what and again, a very important part of EMDR therapy. Because as I said at the beginning of the stream, it's not very fun, dude. You know, you're reliving a traumatic memory. And if it's not traumatic, it's a stressful and poopy memory, dude. You're reliving a memory that fucking sucks. And it's a real fucking bummer. Like I said, when I would get done with EMDR therapy, I'd be so dog-ass tired after an hour of doing it, I would go home and pass out for 2 hours, you know? So the therapist, either way, it's because it's such a bummer, you're going to need strategies for handling that emotional distress that's going to come up during the session. You know, the therapist may teach the client a variety of imagery and stress reduction techniques the client can use during and in between sessions. A goal of EMDR therapy is to produce rapid and effective change while the client maintains equilibrium during and between the sessions. So a couple different strategies that I worked with for a therapist, because every therapist is going to have their own strategies for dealing with these distressing situations or distressing emotions that come up. A couple strategies that I utilized. One is focusing on breathing. We already kind of went over this in my 4 Habits of Navy SEALs video. That's on YouTube right now. That is an excellent video, if I say so myself. I was still kind of working on the sound in my room and still had a lot of popping and crackling in my microphone, which was a bummer, but a lot less than I do now. I haven't heard it on this stream yet, but it probably happens at some point, and I just missed it because I was busy talking or burping or doing something. Fucking with my EMDR thing, whatever. Let me turn this off now that I got it all charged up. Okay, so, and anyways, one very good method for calming emotional situations is box breathing. If you don't know what that is, then definitely go check out my 4 Habits of Navy SEALs episode. Box breathing is one of the first habits that they actually teach Navy SEALs in Navy SEAL school. And they don't sit them down and teach it like, this is what box breathing is. They teach it to them. They just don't tell them what they're teaching them, from my understanding. But yeah, it's a technique for dealing with stressful situations, and it's a very effective one. And I used it regularly. I mean, I had to go through 2 different types, but all together 3 different sessions of de-escalation training when I worked at the juvenile detention facility. And box breathing, in every single de-escalation training that I've ever done, one of the first steps is you de-escalate yourself. you have to calm yourself down before you can calm other people down. You can't just tell people, yo, calm down, bro, because that always pisses everybody off more. That is secret sauce, secret, between you and me. You really want to de-escalate somebody, don't fucking tell them to calm down. That is the worst thing you can fucking say, dude. It will absolutely not calm them down. It is almost guaranteed you are going to piss them off even more. So don't do that. Instead, you need to calm yourself down. And once you're calmed down, then you can assess the situation more effectively and learn or figure out how to calm the other person down. Usually it's by hearing them out, actually. Again, secret from the pro secret right here, right? Secret hack for me, from me to you. If you want to de-escalate somebody, you listen. You say, okay, well, tell me how you're feeling. Say, I'm feeling like this. I feel like I want to beat your fucking ass. Like, okay, well, why do you feel that way? What did I do that makes you feel like you want to beat my ass? Because I don't want to beat your ass, just so you know. I don't want to fuck you up, okay? Like, I don't feel this towards you. So why do you feel this towards me? Let me know, legitimately. And let them explain themselves, that's how you de-escalate people, right? So that's some fucking pro tip right there. Y'all should be paying me for this shit, right? So anyways, because those training courses are not cheap, by the way. They're pretty expensive too. Anyways, box breathing is one of the methods that you learn even in de-escalation courses to calm yourself. So if Navy SEALs do it and you learn it in de-escalation courses for correctional officer training, it's the real deal. So box breathing, go check out my 4 Habits of Navy SEALs video. That was a strategy I used with a therapist. Another one is called the containment strategy, which I actually wrote a small horror story about this one too, by the way. The containment strategy is once you're finished with a session, you take your emotions, you mentally, in your minds, you picture taking all your emotions, your memory, and think of a container in your house, right? You have a container in your house. At the time, was in the middle of a cut and I was dieting when I was going through EDMR therapy. I had a whole year worth of cutting I was doing, and I was, meal prepping. So the first thing that came into my mind was a Tupperware container, but it can be any kind of container. It can be, this is a container a friend made for me back in the day to put my weed in. So, it can be something like this. It can be a music box. It can be whatever you want. Any kind of container with a lid on it. You vividly imagine, your therapist will go over this with you, vividly imagining the container, vividly imagining taking all the nasty emotions you feel, putting them in that container, shutting the lid, locking it, tucking it away somewhere. And once you get really good at that visualization process, it becomes natural. Dude, it's crazy how that can calm you the fuck down. Like, it calms you down real fucking quick. Also, with these particular EMDR bars, you can change the color of the light, as I noted. My favorite color is green, so at the end of a session, we would change the light to green and slow down the light so it's moving very slowly. And for the last 5 minutes of the session, I would describe a happy moment in my life while watching the green light, and that would also calm me down. So those are some other strategies that you might use with a therapist, that a therapist might use with you. Every therapist has their different strategies, but that's what you're going to learn in phase 2. Phase 3 through 6. This is a big one now. In phases 3 to 6, a target is identified and processed using EMDR therapy procedures. These involve the client identifying 3 things: the vivid visual image related to the memory, a negative belief about yourself that comes from the memory, related emotions, and body sensations related to the memory. So if we go to my EMDR protocol that I have actually typed up, this is and I'll actually include this in my to see, look at that. This is a very long series this is the entire protocol that I wrote up to use with myself after I figured out how EMDR works, and I did it with a therapist for a long time. I made notes in a notebook at the therapist's office, and then went on, did further research, did a small online course on it, and wrote out this whole process, right? So, okay, yeah, we're getting ahead of ourselves here. So yeah, before you start, that would be in my notebook. Another important thing, I don't know if every therapist does this, but my therapist had me do it. I'd keep notes on this is a big ass notebook, dude, and it's filled with notes from my EMDR sessions, how I felt afterwards at the end of the session, because therapist will ask you to rate how you feel before and after the session. Any physical things that you note during the session, you'll write all that stuff down. And it's more just for future reference. But so you'll write this stuff down, or your therapist will write it down for you, or you'll write it down together. In addition, the client identifies a positive belief that you would like to change that negative belief, right? So, you write down a visual image that represents that memory. Figure that out with your therapist. Again, this is why you need a therapist. A therapist will know what the best image is to represent that memory after you tell him the memory. Um, he will help you identify what the actual negative belief about yourself really is. And then, you will go over and he'll help you identify the emotions, the specific emotions related to that memory, right? In addition, you'll identify a positive belief that will be used to replace that negative belief about yourself. The therapist helps the client rate the positive belief as well as the intensity of the negative emotions. After this, the client is instructed to focus. Magic Jack 2000, hello. Nice to see you. Thanks for joining the stream. I appreciate you being here, man. I don't know if you've been here the whole time, but if not, thanks for joining. We are just talking about EMDR therapy. We're actually going through the phases of it right now, what the actual phases in the process will look like. We're on phase 3. So, kind of in the middle of it, but still, hope you're enjoying it, or I hope you enjoy it, man. So thanks for being here. So yeah, after this, the client is instructed to focus on the image. That's that negative memory that you've associated, that's associated with your memory, the negative thought, and the body sensations that are all associated with your memory. Oh, good. Well, I'm glad you're into this sort of thing. Whenever I'm doing Mondays, Mondays are always mental health Mondays. So whenever I'm streaming on a Monday, it's usually some kind of mental health topic. And today we're going over, I don't know if you have any experience with EMDR therapy, but that's what we're going over is like light bar therapy. If you have any experience with that, then this is definitely, let me know if you have any experience with it, by the way. Because I actually only have one other person that I've ever met in my life who's done EMDR therapy. If not, then definitely rewatch the VOD back, because there's a lot of useful information on how to get into it, if you feel like this is something you might like. But yeah, if this is something that you've done, definitely say so in the chat, because I've only ever met one other person who's ever done EMDR therapy at all. So it would be nice to meet some other people. Oh, no shit. You took one too. Okay, you took a course on it. So yeah, I took a course on it. That's what we're kind of just went over, was a protocol that I had written up from the course that I took on it. And your therapist did it with you. That's fucking dope. So yeah, that's where I learned about it too. I did EMDR therapy for like a year. Loved it. Thought it was really awesome. And then after a year, moved. And then, as I was saying earlier in the stream, it's really expensive, So when I moved, I was like, I can pay, I think the therapist I was going to, I got like a discount, I guess you could say, but it was like $90 a session. And I was like, I can go back to doing that, or I can buy myself an EMDR light bar, take some courses on it, and learn how to do it myself. And I will say it was more effective with the therapist, it was, but I did it with myself for about a year and a half, and it very much still helped. But again, that was after a year of doing it with a therapist, right? So, but that's really fucking funny, dude. It's the same here, man. We're exact same fucking thing. Started with a therapist, then ended up doing a course on it. So that's fucking crazy. Did you ever get into doing it yourself? I don't know if you're still doing it or not. But yeah, that was where I went. About a year ago. Okay, yeah, about halfway through, right, for sure. Yeah, it can be a process. It can definitely be, depending on what the memory is and depending on how often you do it. As you know, obviously, I'm preaching to the choir on that. I'm sure your therapist's gone all over that. You know that because you did a class with it. But yeah, it can take some time to get through. But yeah, man, that's awesome. What were your thoughts on EMDR therapy? Hold on, I forgot that I'm also recording this for YouTube. So if you're cool with it, Magic Jack, I'm gonna throw the chat up here just so other people can see. If not, I can take the chat away too. But yeah. So what were your thoughts on EMDR specifically? Because I already shared my thoughts with people on how it helped me. I'm doing a video on it because I thought it helped a lot. But one of the reasons why I was interested And knowing if you did it was to hear what your thoughts were on it. If you really enjoyed yourself or not, or like, obviously you didn't enjoy yourself. Can be a difficult process, but if it helped you out, specifically, because it really helped me out. That's why I'm doing the video. So I'd be interested to hear what your thoughts were on it. If you thought it was really effective in helping you with your issues. That'd be cool to know. And it'd be helpful for the audience to know too, because I'm trying to convince anybody who stumbles upon this video that if they have any, obviously PTSD issues, but even like self-esteem issues can very much be helped with EMDR. So that was kind of the point of putting this whole video up here and spending the last 2 hours talking about it. But yeah, so anyways, getting back into phase 3. So this is phase 3 through 6 because it'll happen, well, in kind of like 3 separate steps, right? See. Yeah, okay, good. Yeah, absolutely, man. I have noticed good therapists. Good. Okay, I'm glad you're comfortable with that too. I appreciate that. It just you won't like to have the chat up there, so if anybody sees it on YouTube, they don't think I'm just randomly talking to a random person. They know I'm actually talking to someone who's alive, and it makes me look a little less weird. But yeah, I'm glad that it worked out for you, dude. That's awesome. I'm glad to hear that. But yeah, dude, it was very enjoyable to go through the memories. And yeah, dude, I also noticed that too, man. I did EMDR therapy, and before that, I did cognitive behavioral therapy with a different therapist. It kind of one transitioned into the other, but both of those types of therapies, like you do learn a lot about yourself, man. Like I was saying to the chat earlier, or saying earlier, it's fucking crazy the memories that you forget about until you go to EMDR therapy and start reliving them. And you're like, fuck, I can't believe I forgot about that. Like that happened. That's crazy. So remembering those things, learning how your beliefs about yourself and the world around you come from those memories it's really fucking cool. It can be painful, but it's really worthwhile too. It's definitely a worthwhile thing to go through. So congratulations for going through that, by the way, man. Good on you. Man, by the way, I don't know, if you're man, woman, whatever you got going on, but I always just call everybody man or dude. It just kind of happens, but good for you for going through that. That's fucking awesome because it's a commitment, especially financially, but it's a good thing to do for yourself, So good on you for having the balls and the wherewithal to put yourself through that. It's awesome. So anyways, yeah, in phases 3 through 6, this is where your therapist will help go through, isolate specific parts of the memory to help kind of visualize and represent the memory. Then let's see. After this, the client is instructed to focus on the image, negative thought, and body sensations while simultaneously engaging in EMDR processing using sets of bilateral simulation. So again, that bilateral simulation was the light bar or the little hand vibrators we were talking about earlier, or it can be the audio bilateral simulation. So it can be any of those, or a combination of them too, actually. These sets may include, oh, there it is, eye movement, taps, or tones. Okay, should have read further in before I deviated. The type and length of these sets is different for each client. At this point, the EMDR client is instructed to just notice whatever spontaneously happens. So yeah, that's, you're just kind of noticing how your body's feeling in the moment when you're initially starting. After each set of stimulation, the clinician instructs the client to let his or her mind go blank and to notice whatever thought, feeling, image, memory, or sensation comes to your mind. Depending upon the client's report, the clinician will choose the next focus of attention. Again, this is why it's pretty important to do it with the therapist, is they will know what the appropriate focus thing is for you to focus on while you're doing your sets of stimulation. These repeated sets with directed focus attention occur numerous times throughout the session. If the client becomes distressed or has difficulty in progressing, the therapist follows established procedures. Those are the procedures you learned in phase 2. To help the client get back on track. When the client reports no distress related to the target memory, he or she is asked to think of the preferred positive belief that you thought of earlier in phase 3 that was identified at the beginning of the session. At this time, the client may adjust the positive belief if necessary and then focus on it during the next set of distressing events. Right. Self. Ah. Ah. Yeah, absolutely. No, I mean, therapy is really good for learning self-love. That's very interesting. So um did EMDR therapy help with your ADHD? If you don't mind me asking about that. Uh because that's one I guess I didn't EMDR therapy can be used for so many different things, right? Like as you know. Um I didn't realize that was one of them. Let's learn something new every day, right? Oh, DBT. I'm sorry. Okay, you said um that's a DBT therapy course. Dialectical behavioral therapy. Wow, interesting. Okay, I misread you. My bad, man. I did not see that you said DBT. I have no idea, to be honest with you. I can't honestly answer that question. Dialectical behavioral therapy. Let me just uh pop it up real quick and we'll see if it is. There it is right there. I remember jumping into this. I had a previous stream where I went over cognitive behavioral therapy. And we did I remember reading about dialectical behavioral therapy, but I don't remember if it was anything close to the same thing or not. We'll have to see though. Let me just read about it real quick. Therapy is talk therapy for people with, let's see. Oh, it's based on cognitive behavioral therapy. Okay, but is especially adapted for people. Here, let me pull this over. I should probably just put a chat box in my stream, but I haven't gotten around to doing it yet. Okay, okay. It's type of talk therapy. It is based on CBT, but is especially adapted for people who experience emotions very intensely. Oh, wow. Good stuff. Okay, okay. Interesting. Oh, hey, Adam, man. Nice to see you in here again. I was kind of hoping you'd pop in here, give me your 2 cents on EMDR therapy since you're in psychology, right? I was definitely intrigued. I was hoping you'd pop in today and give me your 2 cents on what you thought about EMDR therapy, if you thought it was effective or not. But what do you, okay, so dialectical behavioral therapy is more focused about acceptance and changing, while EMDR is more about dealing with bad adaptations to traumas. Okay, okay, interesting. Okay, so there is a difference, Magic Jack. Adamant here, like I said, he's studying psychology, so knows what's up on this sort of thing. His answer to the question would be I would listen to him before you listen to me because I don't know what dialectical behavioral therapy is. I've never gone through that. It does say right here it is based on cognitive behavioral therapy, and I've done cognitive behavioral therapy before. So it sounds like, and it's another form of talk therapy, right? Dialectical means combining opposite ideas. Interesting. Helping people accept the reality of their lives and their behaviors, as well as helping them learn to change their lives, including their unhelpful behaviors. Okay, interesting, interesting. Ah, yeah. So yeah, this one is a new one for me. I did kind of go over it on a past stream, like we kind of absentmindedly popped over it, just because it came up somewhere. But I myself have no experience with dialectical behavioral therapy. I have experience with cognitive behavioral therapy, and that was fucking awesome. Um, so like Adamant here was saying, is more about focused on acceptance and changing, right? EMDR is more about dealing with yeah. So we've been kind of going over that in the stream. Yeah, EMDR is much more about accepting those traumas, or dealing with the negative emotions associated with those traumas. Ah, yeah, sure, sure. No, yeah, for sure, Dan. Yeah, that let's see, kind of dips. Absolutely. Well, yeah, for sure. If you're experiencing that, I'm not sure if like we were actually saying in the beginning of the phases, it's definitely a thing where you want to be in the right frame of mind to do EMDR therapy. But that's really cool your therapist did it with you. That's awesome. It sounds like a pretty good therapist. I had a whole thing at the beginning of the stream about how important it is, as I'm sure you can attest to this, right? How important it is to get a good therapist that gives a shit instead of running into a therapist that doesn't care, right? Oh, gotcha. Okay, my bad. I misunderstood Adamant. Well, still, you popped in the chat, though, multiple times and given me some really good information and linked a whole bunch of badass shit. I think it was last week, was it, that you gave me the DSM-5? I still got that, by the way. The DSM-5, and what was the other thing you linked me? Damn it. I forget about it. I got it right here. The DSM-5 and the ICD-11. So Now, I still appreciate you always having in chat, hopping into chat and giving your 2 cents on it, because whatever amount of studying you've done on it is likely more than what I've done on it. You know what I mean? A lot of, particularly these kinds of therapies, when it's coming to this, I'm speaking from personal experience, just how it helped me, you know? Magic Jack is, he's talking about what he experienced. I'm doing the same thing. You know what I mean? Oh, wow. That's really cool. Is that just a thing they do in Canada? Well, good for you, man. Yeah. Take advantage of that free fucking therapy, bro. Hell yeah, dude. That's the smart thing to do, right? Um, yeah, I don't know if they have anything like that here, but that's fucking dope, dude. I'm glad to hear that. Well, good for you for taking advantage of it, and I hope it's working too. It sounds like you definitely got over some of that anxiety and stuff, so hopefully, I'm glad you're doing better too, by the way. But that's really interesting. I'm gonna have to do a little more reading on dialectical behavioral therapy, because if you say it's pretty legit, then that would be a really good topic for another live stream, right? Dude, that's so crazy. See, yeah, dude, this is what I'm talking about, Adamant. I don't think, oh, it was right here. This is where you read it. It's common therapy for borderline personality disorder. See, that's what I mean. You might not be in college for it yet, but you know what the fuck you're talking about. Like, you said that and it literally said it earlier. We had read that. So that's funny. Okay. It is amazing. Yeah, you like it. Well, that's awesome to hear, dude. I'm glad. Yeah, I didn't even know what that was. I just came about it randomly just a couple of weeks ago, So I'm glad to hear that it worked for you though, dude. That's awesome. Yeah, and it seems like your therapist was a real good therapist, combining it with EMDR therapy. I feel like that's a good call. I'm not a therapist, just for the record. I think you probably know that at this point. I'm just more talking about something that I'm passionate about. Seems you're passionate about it too, so it sounds like you totally get where I'm coming from here. But yeah, for me, the EMDR therapy was very, very helpful. I really enjoyed it. I mean, therapy is tough in itself, but I mean, I enjoy the after effects of it, right? It helped me with memories that I had a hard time processing because I was a kid when a lot of it happened. So, kids, I said this earlier in the stream, when you're a kid, man, I'm sure you can relate. Shit happens, and if it happened to you as an adult, you'd probably be like, whatever. It's just a fucking jerk off said some mean shit, and that's all it is. No big deal. But when you're a kid, that shit can affect you a little bit more, right? So there is, EMDR therapy was good for that. I didn't have any intense kind of PTSD, which is what EMDR therapy is most typically used for. Um, but I had, after a couple of years of cognitive behavioral therapy, I definitely had identified some memories where I was like, man, there was some shitty things that happened as a kid, and it definitely left some bad vibes. Is basically, I mean, it just left a negative perception of myself. So EMDR therapy was very helpful in that. Oh man, that's really fucking cool. That's way badass, dude. Yeah, see, that's a good therapist, man. That really is. That's, I was harping on that heavily at the beginning of the stream because that's, it's unfortunate, man, but some people, have a really shitty idea of therapy. I was actually watching a stream today during my workout where these two streamers, who I love too, by the way, I think they're YouTube streamers. Their name is Sitch and Adam. And they were talking about how therapy is like, oh, therapy is fucking stupid and yada yada, and it's such bullshit, and it's like, I don't blame them for feeling that way, because their thought on therapy is it's just you go into a room, cry about your feelings, and your therapist pats you on the back and says, oh no, it's all good, you're okay, you're a special little person that is perfect in every way. And it's like, nah, man, therapy can be much more difficult than usually it's more difficult than that. But there's what's the word I'm looking for? I guess for lack of a better word, it is a straw man that's created on what therapy actually is. And then so a lot of people end up thinking therapy is just a bunch of bogus crap. And a lot of that stems from bad therapists who do that, who just don't do it, who don't care about the people who are in therapy. You'll talk to people and they'll be like, oh yeah, I've been in therapy for the last 10 years. And it's like, 10 years. Wow, did it help you? You know, because I understand, like, if it's really helping, sticking with it, but do you feel any better? And if they're like, yeah, I've been on therapy for like 10 years and I'm still depressed, it's like, okay, I don't think you should probably go see another therapist, right? You know, because at that point, I was given the um metaphor earlier in the stream. My car, I brought my truck in to get it worked on, and I had a small sensor in it that broke that only, should get replaced every 70,000 miles. And I had to get it replaced 3 times in 2 years. And each time it cost me $1,000, a little over a grand, before I finally realized these people are fucking me over and they're putting the sensor in wrong because they don't know what they're doing and they don't care, or they're trying to take my money, right? Unfortunately, there's therapists out there that do that. They don't care, and so they don't give you good quality therapy, or they don't want to help. And because of that, there's this unfortunate straw man of therapy that people have. And even though I can't blame them for feeling that way, it sucks that people feel that way because they're missing out on something that can help them quite a bit, So, anyways, I'm glad that you got a good therapist, though, bro. That's fucking awesome. Good for you. Let's see. Ah, wow, that's really fucking crazy bit of history. Yeah, it was actually EMDR therapy was created, obviously not by the same woman. Oh, I bopped out of it. Her name was Frances Shapiro, I think it was. Francine Shapiro created EMDR therapy, and she created EMDR therapy before she understood what bilateral movement was, which is really fucking crazy. Kind of the same story, Adamant. Same thing. Oh, good for you, man. Good for you. Um, yeah, it is unfortunate. That is really sad. So I don't know how it is in Canada. I've actually never even been to Canada. I heard you guys, got a lot of really cold weather, and I try to stay away from cold weather. So Canada's not my first choice for a vacation. Although you guys got a hotel up there called the Banff Hotel. That I don't know if you've heard of that, but I did a stream on it, the most haunted places in the world. The Banff Hotel is like a haunted hotel. Oh my God, it's the most beautiful hotel in the world. And then you get those Canadian mountains with the pines and the snow, and that's one thing. It might be cold up there in Canada, but goddamn, it's fucking beautiful. You guys got some beautiful land out there. But anyways, I grew up in Wyoming. Okay. Wyoming is a state, the big square smack dab in the middle of the US. And I grew up next to the Wind River Reservation. And my grandpa is Native American, and my aunt married back into the Ogallala Sioux tribe. And so she was able to live on the reservation with her husband. Her husband was 100% Native American, so he was able to live on the reservation. The rest of the family wasn't able to because, all my parents are like 50% or whatever. So they weren't able to live on the reservation. But my aunt was, because her husband was 100% Native. And then my cousins grew up on the reservation. And so, yeah, it was very unfortunate to hear from them that the drugs and alcohol are a very big thing out in Wind River. Anyways, I can't speak for any other reservation. I lived in Montana for a long time, and they had a reservation up there that was amazing. They had all the really good casinos were on it, and it was so beautiful and it was so cool, and the people there were so fucking amazing too, man. It was I forget the name of the reservation. It was an Arapaho reservation though, and man, it was an awesome place, and they were very inviting to come hang out at the casinos. We'll take all your fucking money, white man. But they were really cool people, just really sweet and down to earth. So not all reservations are like that. I know that, but that's the only reservation that I know of that I can speak to. You know what I mean? Oh, the movie. Oh yeah, no, for sure. With not Jeremy Piven. What's that dude's name? Vancouver. You guys don't have casinos in Vancouver, huh? What's the tribe up in, like, what would you mind me asking what your like the native what the tribe name would be, I guess, for lack of a better word. Jeremy Reiner, that's it. Thank you. Fuck yeah, I was gonna look it up because I can't remember his name. Yeah, I have seen that movie. That's a good movie, man. Really harrowing movie too, man. Gosh, really intense movie. Geesh, man, that movie's it's a beautiful watch, and everybody should watch it at least once because it's such a wonderful movie. But It is a hard movie to watch for sure, dude. Very intense movie, but very beautiful. Yeah, very heavy, but it is an amazing movie though. But yeah, that is about that reservation. And the I've never been. I do want to say that. I've never been on the Wind River reservation. The movie is very accurate to representate to the reservation. It's a well-known thing in Wyoming cuz in Wyoming like, everybody's got a little bit of Native American in their blood, right? You walk up to the whitest, most ginger person and they're going to have a little Native American in them, but it's only going to be like, oh, it's accurate to there in Canada too, huh? That's interesting to note. Okay, okay. Well, yeah. So, for what it's like in Wyoming, everybody knows Wind River Reservation because it is, unfortunately, you don't want to go near there, unless you are 100% native. Even like my mom's 50%, or I think she took a blood test. It was, something a little bit more than that, but in that area. And, she was like, yeah, I wouldn't be okay to go there. Because, it's a hard place for those. It's a hard place, man. Um, and like you said, there's a lot of very unfortunate. Yeah, absolutely. No, it's very common. Oh yeah. Well, yeah, absolutely, man. And the thing is well, I guess it says it actually in the movie. There's actually not even a statistic for how many of them are missing. So we know that it's common, and people around the area know that it's very common because you hear about it, but nobody even knows how many are even missing. That's how crazy it is. So it is very sad, but it's a good fucking movie. Really good fucking movie, though. If obviously you're aware of it. Um, but yeah, I'm glad you brought it up on stream because I actually do on Fridays. I do a Film Buff Friday stream where I just go over movies. And right now I'm just kind of going over like film theory. I think this Friday actually I'm going over, is that the right Friday? I got note cards to keep me solid over here, man. Oh yeah, I'm going over like deep dive into movie shots. So I'm doing mostly film theory stuff now, but eventually want to go over some of my favorite movies, and Wind River is definitely up on that list of dope ass movies I would like to go over for sure. So that's definitely one I'm going to save for one day doing a good review on that. Maybe even watching it with chat. I don't know if that's legal. I'm going to give it a shot and we're going to see if it works. And if it doesn't work, if I get a copyright strike, then I just won't do it again, But yeah, I felt like that would be really cool to watch movies on stream live and review them live with an audience, like have people in the chat like you and Adamant talking. Adamant more likes the Mental Health Mondays. He's definitely on the Mental Health Monday stuff. I'm look forward to Mental Health Mondays just so I got Adamant in here to fill me in on shit, right? To kind of help me teach me some of this stuff, right? So but yeah, if you're interested in movies, check out Film Buff Friday. That would be really cool to do a Wind River one, though. That would be a blast to do that. And it'd be even more of a blast to have people come in, chat, and watch the movie with me while we review it. We'll see if that's jives, though. We'll see if they're okay with me doing that on a stream and not copywriting, striking my channel. So we'll give it a shot, see how it happens. But anyways, yeah, I'm rambling on that. Anyways, yeah, we'll go over. Oh, yeah, we already went through phases 3 and 6. So, yeah, with the 2 last phases of EMDR, and phase 7 is closure. The therapist asks the client to keep a log during the week. I already showed you guys this. What I was telling about, your therapist will usually have you keep a log. This is my log from years ago. And you should document any related material that may arise. It serves to remind the client of the self-calming activities that you did in phase 2. And then the last phase, the next session begins with phase 8. Phase 8 consists of examining the progress made thus far. The EMDR treatment processes all related historical events, current incidents that elicit distress, and future events that will require different responses. So that's the whole process of the EMDR that you'll go through. That's what to expect in therapy if you decide to go through it and get a therapist. So oh, yeah, sure. No, yeah, man. Well, that's awesome. That's a good thing to be passionate about, too, man. That really is. You said you were 26, right? I thought you said that somewhere. Yeah, 26 years old. Yeah, man, that's a real good thing to be getting to at your age, too, especially for probably, I would imagine, I guess, because obviously, I don't know. I don't I'm not up in Vancouver, you know what I mean, man? So I couldn't tell you for sure, but I would imagine that there's a lot of young boys out there that really need 20 to 30 some year old men to look up to. Strong, healthy men that have, that are have worked through stuff like this, right? I think that that is a huge bonus that you've gone through therapy and been able to one identify, okay, there's things that I need help with and things I need to learn to accept. Dialectical behavioral therapy seemed like it was more about acceptance, like Adamant said, right? You've gone through that, helped with yourself with that. One, acknowledging that is a huge feat that most people don't ever do, right? I feel like so many people refuse to just acknowledge when they need some help. But doing that serves as a really good role model for younger kids, and I'm a huge believer in that. That was a big part of the reason in the stream earlier I talked about how for the last 2 years, I was a security guard at a high security juvenile detention facility. And a big part of the reason that I got that job was because I, as a kid, went to a juvenile detention facility. I was a bad kid, did a lot of bad shit. Now, obviously, that's kind of how like the therapy thing came around, right? You're angry and pissed off at the world because bad things happen. So, you become a little criminal, is what I did, anyways. And going through the therapy, realizing I had cognitive behavioral therapy, as I described, or as I was saying earlier, is about changing therapies that are negative things about negative things you're doing that you need to fix, and identifying them and changing them. And having gone through that, I definitely felt like, okay, you know what? Now at this point in my life, I think can serve as a effective role model for younger men, And so when I see a guy like you who's out there doing community outreach like that, who's gone through this stuff, I can imagine. I don't know if you. Oh, there, you might have answered my question already. Oh yeah. Oh, sure. Well, yeah, man, I understand that. No, and I mean, but that's a good alternative. That's the thing, instead of, if you can't go out there and, do the work, because, I mean, that's, arthritis, depending on what kinds you got, can be insanely debilitating. I mean, it can be more debilitating than a lot of people realize, And so, that's oh yeah, rheumatoid arthritis is insanely debilitating. Yeah, man, it can be. I don't know. I don't have it, obviously, but I've been told that it's incredibly painful too. Absolutely excruciating. Every time I get a blood test with my hormone doctor, they always test me for any rheumatoid arthritis markers. And the handful of times I brought up, they said, "Fuck, dude, it's incredibly painful. Like, you definitely don't want it." So I'm sorry that you're going through that, man. That really fucking sucks. But the thing is, man, that therapy must have helped a lot, because that last statement, I got to keep my head up high and got to help, and I'm working on myself to get better. That's a lot of people who would be in a continuous um what's the word, situation of chronic pain like that. It's hard to find people who are in that situation that have that mentality, right? That are able to tell themselves like, hey, I can't work because of this, but I can still do work on myself. I'm never out of options. There's always something I can do to better my own life, to better the quality of my life and better myself. And that's not a mindset that you commonly run into in the world. That's a very different and unique mindset. A mindset that speaks to somebody who has actually gone through a lot of the self work that you go through in that I imagine you go through in dialectical behavioral therapy, right? So it seems like the therapy really helped because you got that healthy mindset, you know, and when you got that healthy mindset like that, that, it's, I guess for lack of a better phrase, it's almost like you can go through anything, right? Like you can go through a nasty, bout of rheumatoid arthritis and still be able to affect the people in your life in a good quality way and still lead a happy life and still lead a productive life, even if you have to, you got to be unemployed because you can't work with it. You can still live a very productive life. um but it requires that mindset, right? And unfortunately, man, you just don't meet a lot of people who have that mindset. It's a very rare mindset to have, and usually when you do meet somebody who has it, it's because they've been through something like therapy, or they've been through a traumatic childhood and they went out and got help, whatever the issue, whatever it is, they've gone out and taken the necessary steps to better themselves, right? So that's good to hear, though, and I'm sorry to hear about your arthritis. That's horrible. I feel for you. I do. I don't know how bad it is, obviously, because I haven't had it, but from what I understand, it's pretty shitty. But that's awesome that you feel the way you do about it, that you still have that mentality about it, man. That's an amazing way to be, and that's the most important thing. That's more important than not having rheumatoid arthritis, right? Because I'm sure I know people, right? That's the whole reason I come on my mental health Mondays and harp on therapy and stuff, because I've known people. Uh, what's a good example I can think of? A good example is a best friend of mine that I had growing up, who, well, absolutely, of course, yeah. See, that's exactly, man. Of course you deserve to be here, absolutely. But that's definitely I mean, that right there is a mindset, like that sentence right there is the mindset, man. And that mindset is so important. It's more important than whether or not you even have arthritis or whether or not you can work. I used to have a friend back in the day, one of my good friends. I grew up with the kid, and he was 6'3". He was a wrestler and a swimmer, and he even did a cheerleading, because nobody would give him shit for that, dude. This dude was ripped. He was shredded. He was athletic, and he was so handsome, dude. I mean, all the ladies would talk about his ice blue eyes. He had ice blue eyes that were just piercing, and oh man, all the girls in high school just head over heels for this guy. I remember he came in and he was started dating the wrestling coach's daughter. And the wrestling coach was a mean motherfucker, Mr. Bath. Oh, Mr. Bath threatened to shove so many things up my ass when I was a kid, man. He fucking hated me, but he loved Preston. And he was so excited when he knew Preston was dating his daughter. Preston had money. His family had money too. But Preston did not have a good mindset. I think, I don't know, I'll never know for sure, but I do think there was a part of me feels like Preston was a bit of possibly even a sociopath. But he had some serious issues. He lost his older brother, both of his older brothers. His oldest brother died in Afghanistan, and then his second oldest brother killed himself. And so that hit Preston real hard. And, anyways, despite all these really wonderful gifts that Preston did have in life, he was, he was handsome, he was strong, he was very smart, graduated in the top of his class, had a family with money, he had lots of opportunities. He got heavy into drugs, and we all did when we were kids, but he definitely got heavy into it. And he died when he was 29. He passed away from a heroin overdose. And the last few years of his life were not very pretty at all. And so here's a person who didn't have, isn't going through any amount of the physical pain that you're going through, right? That's why I tell you this story. Preston go through, he went through some serious emotional pain with losing his brothers for certain. But you've gone through that emotional pain. That's why you went to dialectical behavioral therapy, because you went through that emotional pain. And, you're going through the physical pain that he never had to contend with, and a lot of other issues that he didn't have to contend with. And, that if he would have had that mindset that you have, it would have saved him. It would have saved his life. He would have gone out and done something magnificent with his life, because the amount of gifts that he had, that kid could have gone so many places. But he didn't. He ended up overdosing and passing away. And because of that, his lineage is gone forever. Preston was the last man in his family. So that the Squires, his last name, they were the Squires, Preston Squires. That bloodline is gone forever. And my dad grew up with his dad. My grandpa grew up with his grandpa. We all grew up in the same small town. And, there will never be another Squires. that bloodline's gone forever. And so that's really sad, if he would have had a mindset like you, it would have saved his life. So that mindset is the most important thing in the world. I always remember that whenever I think about how hard life's getting or whatever, or things get tough in my life, always try to remember, man, that mindset is the most important thing. So, because you can have everything else in the world, and with a bad mindset, you'll never give a fuck. You'll never even notice how awesome life is if you have a shitty mindset. You know, so good on you for having that mindset, because that's what makes you a productive person, even though you have rheumatoid arthritis, right? You can still have that and still be a very productive person. So, oh yeah, it's a sad story. It is. And I don't mean to tell the sad story because that was almost 10 years ago now. He died when I was 26. Now I'm 35. So it's, yeah, that's all that it is. You know what I mean? It's just to tell you that, yeah, just to put that point across, man, the mindset is the most important thing in the world. That's what it is. So. But still, yeah, man. Good on you for taking care of that, though. That's fucking badass. I'm glad to hear that. I'm glad you came into the stream, too, man. This is why I want to do the Mental Health Mondays. I wish you would have showed up a little earlier. We caught each other at the wrong times. You know how it is. It happens, right? You know what I'm saying? Because this is definitely like the kind of conversations that I want to be having on Mental Health Mondays. Because I think, having these kinds of conversations out in the open where other people can see them, creates I guess, what's the word I'm looking for? A space or an atmosphere, a feeling like it's okay to have these conversations. And these are needed conversations, because think of all the people out there, man, that are in your shoes or in my shoes that aren't getting the help they need because they don't know about it. They don't have somebody like you in their life that's telling them, dude, hey, you should like go to this thing because this helped me, you know? That is, there's so many young men and women that, a person like you could reach that, it doesn't have anybody in their life like that. And so having these kind of conversations on stream and out in the open, I think is like very beneficial for society. And, a kind not, I don't even mean that. I'm not trying to say that in like a, whoa, look at, how badass I am sort of situation. I just mean that in like, you know, if it's one thing that I think is very helpful is all that I'm saying. So, I'm glad you showed up on stream, man, and decided to sit and chat with me and, tell me about yourself too, and put all that out there, for consumption, for people to see, man. I appreciate that a lot. Thanks for letting me keep it up in the chat too, cause these kind of conversations are very helpful for other people. And maybe somebody comes across this video on YouTube and decides to get help for themselves, because they hear people talking about, oh no, this shit is real and it really helps out. Like I said, that stream I was listening to earlier today, 2 streamers laughing about how therapy doesn't help. And their whole audience, watches that and says, yeah, it probably doesn't help. But, they can come to see our, this stream where you and me are talking about it and say, well, here's 2 people talking about it and it says it helped them a lot, and then you put your stuff out here and they're saying, wow, look at what this guy's going through. Rheumatoid arthritis, these bouts with depression and all of this. And he's getting along, man, and he's helping himself. Like, this shit must really work, So it just sets a really good standard that other people might use to help themselves, So I appreciate you doing that. Oh, well, yeah, sure. I can't imagine. Yeah, especially not a lot of native mental health workers out there. Well, for sure, dude. Yeah, no, I probably imagine that's a thing. I guess I don't know how it is in Canada. All I can speak for is Wyoming. And in Wyoming, there's not a lot of mental health workers, period, anyways. Because, Wyoming's definitely, it's like a cowboy state, man. I grew up on a ranch. Everybody grows up on a ranch in Wyoming. So it's much more, when you're a kid, it's rub dirt on it and get the fuck over it. You know what I mean? So, and, I don't know if like native communities are that way in Canada, because I just, like I said, I've never been. I would still like to see it because it's a very beautiful place. But, if it's anything like that, then you're probably right. The mental health community is small, and then it's even smaller when you get to the native communities. You see what I'm saying? So, oh, well, thank you, by the way. You seem like a very cool dude too, man. It was nice to have you on the stream. Oh, did you really? No shit. I just bought Yellowstone. I just bought it. Well, no, that's not true. Hold on. That's a lie. I lied to you. My bad. I bought it 6 months ago. and still haven't watched it yet because I heard it's such a fucking amazing series. Um, but I'm gonna binge watch it. If I turn it on, I know I'm gonna like it, and I'm gonna fucking binge watch it, and then I'm gonna be stuck every night, binge watching this show. So I'm like, oh, I gotta like wait till I have a moment in my life where I'm not so busy because I just bought a house and I'm working on it, trying to get it together and fix things with it, fix certain things on it. I'm just started my stream just a month ago, so new to doing this as well. There's so much shit going on in my life that don't have the time to binge watch it. That's awesome though. I'm glad that you say that though, because I bought it and it's sitting in my fucking shit and I'm just waiting to binge watch it because I heard it's such a good fucking series. What was another one, man? Oh, does it really? Well, that's good to hear too. Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, that's important. I know. Well, shoot, didn't correct me if I'm wrong. Okay, you might know. But didn't Taylor Sheridan, the guy who wrote Wind River, didn't he also write Yellowstone? Is that a thing, or am I making that up? But that would explain why he has a good representation of Native people. Um, because Wind River was an awesome representation of Native people, man. It was very complex, and that's what I appreciated about Wind River was it had such a beautifully complex instead of just being, well, one, obviously stereotypical, but more than that, being two dimensional. Instead of just being two dimensional, like, oh, well, here's a good native, here's a bad native. And it's like, well, people are more complex than that, dude. It doesn't matter what background they are, ethnicity they have, dude. Everybody's complex. You can be good, but still have problems. You can be bad, but still have things good about you, And Taylor Sheridan, he directed Wind River. Okay, okay, okay. Oh, and he's in Yellowstone. I didn't know that. That's interesting. Acts in it too. I just knew. Oh, and he did Landman series. Okay, well, this is writer. So he did write Yellowstone. And then wrote and directed Wind River. Damn, I thought so. So that definitely explains why Tyler from Sons of It's been a long time since I've seen Sons of Anarchy. What character was Tyler? Oh, his name is Tyler Sheridan. That's it. Okay, okay. That's where I'm getting mixed up. My bad, my bad. So yeah, he was in Sons of Anarchy. This is him right here, right? I remember Sons of Anarchy. Who was he in Sons of Anarchy? That was a pretty good show. That was an entertaining show. That one was intense too, though. That one, I don't know if I would. The deputy. Oh, shit. Okay, so he was one of the good guys. Was he a good deputy? He worked on. I think I know what you mean. He worked under the old dude. What was that old guy's name that played like the sheriff? He was a good guy. He was. Okay, okay, yeah, yeah, okay. I know who you're talking about now. Wow, I didn't realize that was him. I know he did I don't know if you've seen it. He did. Oh, there it is right there. That's him from Sons of Anarchy right there. Unsir, that's it. Unsir. Good memory. Good fucking memory, bro. There he is right there. Yep, that's him. Okay, I know who he is. Yeah, so I know Joe Rogan did a interview with Taylor Sheridan, and I never saw it, I don't, sometimes most of the time I don't have the time to watch a 3 hour long, Joe Rogan interview, but a lot of people said it was really dope. So I haven't seen the Mayans yet. Haven't seen the Mayans. That's good to know. Is it as good as Sons of Anarchy? Because I did love Sons of Anarchy. Sons of Anarchy was fucking dope. It was just really brutal. It was so brutal, man. And I know the writer of Sons of Anarchy. He plays oh my god, with the eye patch. It's been a minute. It's been a fucking minute. What was that? Yeah, not as good, but still great. Okay, well, I gotta check the Mayans out then, man. Because that did look very intriguing. Is that written by the same guy too, by the way? Sons of Anarchy. Did the guy who wrote that also write the Mayans? Or was that somebody else who wrote that? Yeah, Opie, that's it. No, not Opie. I have a friend though, by the way, who looks just like Opie. Oh, it is the same writer. Okay, cool. Otto, that's who I'm thinking of, is Otto. Good fucking memory, dude. Fucking memory on you. Jeesh. Got this at your fingertips, man. Yeah, so Otto, he was the writer of it, right? And I'm trying to look for his name in real life. Um, but yeah, okay, so he wrote, oh, Kurt Sutter, it's right there. Yeah, that's him. Yeah, Otto. Oh man, yeah. See, the scenes with Otto, man, they did Otto so fucking dirty in that show. And it was disturbing. And Opie, too. How Opie dies in that show. That episode, dude, was dark, dude. And I remember watching it and I like turned the show off for like probably 3 or 4 days. Um, yeah, dude, I actually fucking saw a YouTube short on that the other day. They had 2 or 3 Happy. So the guy who plays Happy was an actual biker. And who are some of the other guys? Yeah, yeah, half the cast dies in the fucking show and their deaths are brutal too, dude. Like it's, it's one thing when they die, but when they like Tig's daughter, oh, dude. Man, that scene where they burn Tig's daughter, dude, is so intense, dude. Like, again, another moment, dude, where I had to shut the show off. I was like, Jesus Christ, dude, I don't know if I can watch this shit. Like, I gotta take, yeah, see, that shit was so brutal, dude. Like, I had to take a 2 or 3 day break, man, because that was so nasty, dude. But yeah, half of these people, unfortunately die in the, some of them kind of deserve it, but Happy Loman. I think this guy, David LaBrava, was a biker, if I remember correctly. But there was more than a few. Like you said, there were several people in the show that were bikers, which is fucking cool. Yeah, Chibs is the shit. Well, Chibs is cool, and the fact that, I guess, I don't know if it's true, okay? So can't quote me on this, right? Fake news. But supposedly, this actor, Tommy Flanagan, got those scars from an actual Glasgow smile. Like, he actually, I don't know if you ever heard of a Glasgow smile. I don't think it was gang related. I don't think he was in a gang, if I remember correctly. But this Glasgow smile is a thing that gang members in Glasgow, which I believe is Scotland, Glasgow, Scotland. That's something, yeah, they do to him. He had that. I think if you ever seen the movie Green Street Hooligans. I don't know if it was the IRA or a football gang, because they have football, what do they call them? Firms is what they call them. Up there they have gangs that are centered around what we call soccer, or in America we call soccer. I don't know what you guys call it in Canada, to be honest with you, but they call, it's called football up there. They have firms, gangs that follow each football team around. So I don't remember if it was a firm or if it was the IRA or if it was some other, because they had the I guess that was the Irish Civil War, but I don't know what else they have in Scotland, to be perfectly honest with you. But I do know what I'm told, or what I read, was he got that. Supposedly how they do that is they stick a credit card in your mouth and then boot it and kick it, and it slices all the way up your cheeks. And that's supposedly how he got that smile. So that's intense, dude. That's crazy. And to go through something like that, dude, that's pretty gnarly. He's not going around giving people Glasgow smiles, thank God. But to have that done to you is like, woof. That's a bad motherfucker, dude, to be honest. I can safely say I've never had no shit like that happen to me, dude. So, but yeah, I just like that actor. That actor is a good fucking actor. But his character, Chibs, was one of the chillest and coolest in the show. Right? Because some of them were just too crazy for me. Some of them, I could never live that life, right? I could never do the biker gang thing. You know what I'm saying? Peaky Blinders, that was a really good show too. I don't know if you ever saw that. I only watched the first 2 seasons, but that was a good show. Now I was trying to think about what, 'cause didn't he, hold on, let's go back a step to Taylor Sheridan. Have you ever seen the movie Hell and High Water? This one right here. You ever seen Hell and High Water? Uh, this one was a good fucking movie. Um, More centered, yeah, on the two brothers out in Texas. Uh, but yeah, there's a lot of really good themes in this movie, and a very interesting and heartbreaking theme of how, well, it's actually in this scene right here that they're showing on my screen. Um, this scene right that they just showed, the Native American sheriff is talking to Jeff Daniels, the other sheriff, and he's telling the what the movie is about is how white people came in, took this land from the natives, and now the banks are coming in and taking this land from all the poor white people out there. And it's showing this vicious cycle of everybody losing their, essentially the idea of losing your house, your home. And it's a really interesting theme to put in a fucking movie, man. Like, it was a really good movie. I really liked that movie a lot. That was another Taylor Sheridan one that was just fucking awesome, man. He's a really good writer, director. Somebody once told me that he's kind of a butthead and like a little bit arrogant, maybe. I don't know how true that is. That's just people talking. I've never even seen an interview with Taylor Sheridan. I know Joe Rogan did an interview with him. I don't know how it went because I just didn't have the time for a 3 hour long interview. Anyways, I don't know if you checked that out, but if you're a Taylor Sheridan fan, check that out. Because I guess I should probably check that out before I say anything. I haven't seen Landman neither, so I don't know how good that is. Or Tulsa King. I heard that one's awesome too. And then Sicario. Sicario was a fucking badass movie too. That was a really good movie. That was a little bit less on native culture and more with a Hispanic and Mexican culture. So, but was still a really good movie. But yeah, anyways. So, yeah, thanks for bringing that up. That was a fun conversation to have, man. I love talking about movies. So, I think I already told you, I do a Film Buff Fridays on my channel where I just talk about movie related stuff. And yeah, that the whole point of making that Film Buff Fridays was to bullshit, talk about movies with people, and just go over movie related content. So, anyways, I'm a big fan of it. It seems like you enjoy movies too, so that's awesome. But yeah. Anyways, so yeah. Long story short, where was I? Let me backtrack a minute. Yeah. Oh yeah. Like I was saying, like yeah. So that does cover it for the stream. Usually I only do about 2 hour long streams. Starting at like 7 is usually when I start. And so, still though, I'm glad that you came into the stream. Thanks for popping in, man, and checking the stream out. And thanks for sitting and have a conversation with me too. I really like it. I mean, I like it when people watch the stream anyways, even if they just kind of want to lurk in the shadows and watch. That's totally fucking cool, But I really enjoy it when people come in and actually talk with me and bullshit with me, and it's a lot more funner for me than just talking into a blank camera. You know what I'm saying? So thanks for popping in, man. I am gonna probably let you go because I've been streaming for about 3 hours and I'm starving, man. I'm actually on a cut. I'm on a diet right now. I only got 6 more pounds to go, but I only eat like twice a day, and I got a big ass plate of tuna up there that's calling my name. So I'm gonna go eat that shit. Because all I've had is protein shakes and granola bars to eat today. So I'm gonna go eat. And that about covers it for the stream today. For our Mental Health Mondays. And but to Magic Jack, thanks for hopping in on the stream, man. Thanks for watching. Especially thanks for sitting and chatting with me, man. It was a fucking blast to sit and talk with you about movies, learn about dialectical behavioral therapy. Thanks for coming in and dropping that down on me and telling me something about that. Thanks for sharing about yourself too. I think it's on Mental Health Mondays. It's very helpful for people to see people having these kinds of conversations, man. So thanks for putting yourself out there and having a conversation about that. And yeah, man, I hope I get to see you again on another Mental Health Mondays or Film Buff Fridays. If you're interested and want to talk more about movies, I'll be back here Friday at 7 p.m. To be talking about, we'll be going over, what did I say? I know I said it earlier, but I already forgot. Oh yeah, Friday, that'll be a deep dive into shots. We're talking about how movie and camera shots relate to film theory. So I'll be going over that. So if you're interested in that, please join in, man, and have another conversation, man. I'd love to have you, love to sit and chat with you some more and get to know you some more. But thanks for showing up, man. I really appreciate that. Made the today's stream a lot more fun for me. So I appreciate you doing that. Adamant, I don't know if you're still there, but if you are, thank you for showing up too, man. I always appreciate having you in the stream to sit and bullshit. You always bring in some really intriguing information too. Every time you come in, you're dropping knowledge on me or linking very useful information. So I appreciate you coming in also. And Cutie Pie, of course. I can't forget you, beautiful. Thank you for showing up and sticking with the stream too and chatting me up. I always appreciate that. So thanks to all you guys for joining me on the stream, man. I really appreciate it. I appreciate having you guys here. To anybody who sees this on YouTube, thank you for checking out the stream, and I hope you enjoyed it and had a good time. And if you enjoy this kind of content and would like to do it live and come in and sit and chat with me as well, I'd love to have you. So consider coming over to the Twitch channel and bullshitting with me and hanging out, because it's a lot more fun for me when I get cool people to talk to like this, you know? So, and then, yeah, hit me up on Mondays for the Mental Health Mondays. Tomorrow is Terrifying Tuesdays. So tomorrow I'm going is All Things Scary every Tuesday at 7 p.m. I go over some scary shit. Spooky, scary, weird, macabre, you know, things like that. Tomorrow, I'm going through a whole list I started a whole list of, I'm going to go over each state, all 50 states, do a stream on each state, a 2-hour stream on the most popular urban legends and myths that come out of that state. So we're starting that whole series up tomorrow with Alabama myths and legends. So tomorrow we'll be going over all of the local myths and legends of Alabama. We got in Alabama's got a lot of good ones. Their history with Native American culture and slavery brings a lot of very scary, sometimes disturbing, and very heartfelt and sometimes very sad myths and legends out there, man. So come back in for that. We'll be talking about the ghost of Henry Wales, the witch of Hines Roads, and the Dead Children's Playground, just to name 3 of some of the more crazy myths we got, but I got a whole list of them. So if you enjoy scary, spooky stuff, tune in every Tuesday for Terrifying Tuesdays, where we'll talk about some scary ass shit. And yeah, hopefully I will see all you guys back there. Again, to everybody who came into the stream and participated, thank you so much, man. I appreciate the support, and I appreciate the conversation. And to anybody who watches this on YouTube, same thing. I appreciate your support. Hope you enjoyed the stream. And hopefully I will see you guys later. So you guys all have a wonderful rest of your day, and I'll see you next time. Peace.